The show where anything goes. Motivation, mindset, recovery, philosophy, and life. We become who we are through what we experience. We all have a story, and this is My Backstory with Josh Boyer.
The My Backstory podcast with the one and only V Linz. I want you to tag how people can get a hold of you first on the front end, because people listen to a whole entire podcast and you get to the very end, it's like, oh, by the way, like, in order to get in touch with me, it's like people have already checked out.
And you can't tag me, so
I know, it's bullshit. I was trying to tag you the last time, and I was like, man, I couldn't tag you. You're like shadow banned.
I'm so fucking shadow banned. It's ridiculous. So I was looking at something the other day, and like I went to like who they were following, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, like this person unfollowed me or whatever, right? But no, it was just happened. Like, I'm so fucking shadow banned. I wasn't even like, if you look at somebody like who they're following, I guess like you're supposed to be like the person at the very top. Yeah. And I just thought like they unfollowed me because I wasn't there. I was like, well, fuck.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, there's so many people like you that, and just for the listeners, like people will ask like, oh, how do you like determine who's going to be on your podcast? And I knew from a long time ago, like when I started following on social media, I was like, I got to talk to her at some point.
I told you I was boring.
No, and you know what's funny is when I reached out to you, that's exactly what you said. You're like, no, my life is boring. Like we're not gonna have anything to talk about. And I told you, and I truly believe this, that most of the people that have said that to me, like it's gonna be, they're boring. They don't have much to talk about. Those end up being the best podcast. And I don't think this is gonna be any different. So
yeah.
No, but the main reason why I wanted to have you on is because it's very rare that you see people that have like this huge following or a big following on social media that are willing to throw it all out there. People think like, oh, social media is fake. Like who cares? Like why? I mean,
I think
it's not real life. However, people like make a living on social media. A lot of people that have like their businesses, they use social media to like grow that business.
Yeah, to market it.
Yeah, to market it, to make money. So it's like for the people like you that have the following that you do, and you're still willing to be authentic and real. Like I love people like that. I love it.
I just don't give a fuck. Like I stopped caring a long time ago what people think. Yeah. Probably from a very young age, but to me, like I don't make money off social media. Obviously my money, like my income stems from nursing and doing travel contracts. So for me, even though I am getting paid when I go on contract, pretty damn well, like there's nothing that's going to sit here and stop me from saying the truth. Like everything I've seen.
For sure. Now we need more people like you. And I think that's, people that are willing to speak their truth or whatever the truth is without the fear, or like even if they have fear, like I could lose my job, I could lose my livelihood, but I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna let it rip, and I'm gonna share the actual truth of what's really happening. Yeah. And so just a little background, V Linz here is a cardiac transplant nurse, correct? Yes. And a Navy veteran. So we're gonna go into her life and kind of where her beginnings started, because that's like the whole premise of the My Backstory podcast is sharing your backstory and kind of how you got to like where you are today. And there might be things that you don't want to talk about, but I'm going to try to draw as much as I can out of you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Get ready for it. So I'm going to let you take it away and share like your story. Like what was your beginnings like,
From young age, I was born in Houston. So born, I know. I don't claim it because it's ghetto. Not a Houston fan at all. DFW area is more my style. Yeah. I didn't have like the best childhood growing up. Father was like very abusive. Was not actually a father. Right. My mom worked a lot. There's 5 of us, and I grew up in the woods between Texas, Mississippi. Tomboy for sure. Like everyone wanted to play with Barbie dolls. I wanted to catch snakes in the ditch.
Yeah, I got an interesting story about Barbie dolls. It's kind of funny, and GI Joes and whatnot. So you'd think like, you'd think that being a boy, I had brothers, and but I had a stepsister too, who was 3. I think she's 3 years older than me, and I had a little sister, and then my stepsister was older. And she didn't have anybody to play with, so she had all these Barbies and she had nobody to play with. So for Christmas, I asked for a Ken doll. And my father completely talks so much shit. Like, oh, are you some kind of queer? Are you a fag? Like, you want a Ken doll? And it had nothing to do with being gay. It had everything to do with, I just want to play with my sister. That was it. And it was really just the kindness of my heart, like being like, I want to play with her, like it wasn't anything gay. But it's just like, dads, I guess, are doing the best they can, or he's just giving me what he had available in his toolbox, which isn't much, but anyway, I digress.
No, it's okay.
So you grew up a tomboy in, so what area, would you say is your hometown? I mean, you were born in Houston, but where did you primarily grow up?
We kind of spent time, all over, I went to school in Texas. I went to school in Mississippi. What got me, kicked out of Mississippi was, I got into a fight when I was 15.
Yeah.
Got arrested.
Damn, girl.
Yeah. Was not allowed back at that school or the county or alternative school or anything like that. So had to move back to Texas. I was stubborn as hell, we had to move back to Texas. I was stubborn as hell, and I fought in Texas too. So I got suspended quite a bit. My mom really couldn't say much because I had amazing grades. I still got out half a day early as a junior and graduated as a junior. So I graduated an entire year early, which brings me to my
why were you fighting? What was the what was causing? Because I grew up the same kind of way, where it's a tough upbringing and fighting a lot, but I also wasn't a dummy, you know what I mean? I got good grades, I wasn't I wasn't a dummy, I wasn't a knucklehead, but I was fighting a lot.
No, yeah. So in Mississippi, just my childhood best friend was basically being bullied, and I just wasn't going to stand for that.
Yeah.
So when the chick sucker punched me in the back of the head, she should have knocked me out because all she did was fucking piss me off. And you got to understand, my brother's 4 years older than me, so we used to wrestle or fight hard.
Yeah.
He was real rough on me growing up. Mostly because of the whole boy thing,
For sure.
But then in Texas, when I moved to Texas, I don't know, it's just people just didn't like me because I didn't look a certain way, because I'm supposed to be Mexican and I'm supposed to be looking a certain way apparently.
Right.
And I don't stand for shit, so it was not good. The chick I got into a fight with in the common area, and all I remember was security guard, big, probably 3 or 4 times my size at the time, was pulling me off her, and I didn't know who was pulling me off, so I was throwing elbows, and apparently I could throw some elbows.
Throw them bows.
And it's bad when you you go back on leave, when I was on in the Navy, and my sister was still in high school, my baby sister was still in high school, went to pick her up, and I see the same security guard, and he's like, what the fuck?
She's back.
Yeah. So it kind of set the tone, the reputation or whatever.
Yeah.
For my sisters, I didn't let one of my other sisters get bullied either. Some kid was picking on her, so I went not to the kid. I went to his big brother, and I was like, "Look, I'm gonna fucking kick your ass. I'm gonna kick your brother's ass, and then I'm gonna go back and kick your fucking mom's ass."
Yeah.
So.
Sometimes that's what it takes. We had this conversation at the dinner table the other night because my 5-year-old. Got pushed down, he's at school and someone pushed him down, and he's such a tender heart, he's but he's so big, for his age, he's just a big kid, and I was like, dude, the next time it happens, just punch him in his face. And he was he kind of looked at me kind of puzzled. I was like, dude, you don't I don't want you to just go and start fights with people, but I want you to finish them.
Yeah.
And I also I'm not down with people putting their hands on you, man. That's just not okay. If someone touches you, it's over. That's the end of the story. Try to talk your way out of things, be diplomatic, but if that fails and someone's pushing you to the ground, that's where you stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And so they're still learning, but I think as kids we all have to get to that place where enough is enough. And I think for me, just like you, when I was fighting, you establish kind of a reputation where people just stop fucking with you. It's I don't want to mess with that person anymore.
My resting bitch face helps a lot too.
It's I'm not really even pissed. I just look this way. Sorry.
Yeah. I had actually a patient one time. He was like, he's like, you need to smile more. I'm like, what's wrong with my face? And he's like, your face. I said, this is my face all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Did you know, like, when you were in high school that you were going to go to the Navy? Like, was it like a plan? Were you just kind of like, what? Because the reason I'm asking that is because there's a lot of us that, you know, you talk to a lot of the military types, and it's like we all pretty much have bad upbringings. We're all a bunch of misfits.
Yeah.
And so we all end up in the military and become this big dysfunctional family.
Yeah. So I was well ahead of like my schooling and all that. So at 16, my brother, like I said, he's 4 years older than me. So he had joined the he had joined the Navy. And so like the same recruiter that put him in the Navy, put me in the Navy, because I went to him and I told him, I said, I want to join. Yeah. And so that was like a whole crazy thing in itself, because, you know, I was 16. So he was like, shouldn't even be talking to you about this. Right. Without like your mom's permission or whatever. And I was like, my mom will get over it. I originally wanted to go to the Marine Corps, but because I was going to be only I was barely going to turn 17 in like that February, and I was signing on my 17th birthday. Oh, wow. So she had to sign a waiver, and she said like, absolutely no Marine Corps. She's like, you can go Navy or you can go Air Force. And I tried looking for the Air Force recruiter, and like, these guys don't fucking work. They don't work, man. You can't find them in the office. So I got kind of stuck with the Navy. Yep. And I'm glad. Like, my recruiter was amazing. He like didn't lie to me. I still keep in touch with him. He still asks how my family's doing. He's overall like good guy, where I could go to boot camp and I just heard horror stories. Like, my recruiter told me this, and I'm like, damn, that fucking sucks.
No, recruiters are like, they can make or break like your career in a lot of ways. And I think, I was very fortunate to have a good recruiter, like going into the Air Force. Like, he was really awesome. And like, you hear stories like where, transformed, Remy, Adeleke, he's a Navy SEAL. His recruiter, he talks about his recruiter and like all the things she did to get him into, the Marine Corps before he went into the Navy. And I mean, she went above and beyond to like get him in. Yeah. And I mean, into the Navy. And it's just crazy. Like, when you have a good recruiter, like, it could really change the course of your life.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
He and you know, he told me, he's like, hey, when you go to MEPS, like, if you're not comfortable signing, like, don't sign anything. And I'm like, you don't have to tell me twice. Yep. So when I got to MEPS, and the dude, which I know now is a senior chief. I didn't know rank or anything, you know, back then. I was 17. You couldn't tell me anything, because I knew it all, you know. Yeah. And he tried to give me some bullshit job, so I just told him, I was like, yeah, I'm not signing that. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm not fucking signing that. Oh. And he didn't like that, so I just told him, I was like, hey, I'm done here, like, take my ass back. Yeah. And they tried to send in this guy. He was like the regional like recruiter or something for that area, and so he comes in and like tries to like sweet talk me about, hey, like, we'll put you in the hotel again tonight. Like, we can have you come back in the morning and see what we can offer you tomorrow. And my smart ass, like, again, barely turned 17. I'm like, what can you offer me tomorrow that you can't offer me right now? Yeah. And so he's kind of like, shit. Which, funny story. I actually ran into him in November of 2020 at a funeral. And I was just mind blown. He's like, holy shit. He's like, I always wondered, like, if I made an impact. And I was like, I remembered your face, and I remembered like all the stuff you tried to tell me. I was like, but I wasn't listening very well.
Yeah, for sure. What did you end up doing? Like, what was your job that you ended up getting?
So I ended up doing gunner's mate, because I left that day. I was like, nope, you're not convincing me to do anything. So they had to bring me back. And then the guy that drove me up to MEPS the second go around, he asked me, he's like, hey, he's like, do you like guns? I'm like, yeah, I'm from Texas. Like, who doesn't love guns from Texas? And he he was a gunner's mate. And so he started telling me about that stuff. And I was like, that sounds fucking cool. Yeah. So I told him, when I got there, I said, I want gunner's mate or nothing at all. Yeah. And they're like, we can't do that. I was like, bye.
Bada bing, bye.
And then they miraculously drew up a contract. Yeah. So I ended up joining, went through the gunner's mate A school, got stationed on the Roosevelt out of Norfolk.
Is that mostly dudes in that career field?
Yes. So I was one of 4 chicks in the division. Okay. And, getting to the boat, it's like you're fresh meat, you know?
Oh,
so
for
like
sure.
my recruiter like warned me. He's like, watch out for this, and this. Like, dude's a solid dude, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, which I don't think you're going to have problems. He's like, because you're a fucking bitch.
Feisty.
But yeah, I mean, I did really good. I put on E5 by the time I was like 20 years old.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I checked the box on probably everything. Like, I was really, really good. I mean, I love guns. I'm from Texas, so it was fun. Like, it didn't feel like a job.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later where I just like, you get stuck and you're just kind of like in the same bullshit.
Yep.
And the military tells you, you can't survive without them. And the whole reason I got out is because I got tired of hearing that. And I think that the military does put a cap on your potential. So
for sure.
I knew I was done with it, and I was going to be on to bigger, better things, whatever it might have been. I mean, I didn't know I wanted to be a nurse. Like, I can't stand people. So
it's kind of funny, to be a nurse and you can't stand people.
But I deal with them with tubes down their throat.
Right.
So,
They can't even talk, so we're good.
yeah. The second we pulled a tube in cardiac surgery, like, we're like, you got to go to the floor, man. Like, we can't have you here.
How many years were you in before you got out?
Almost 8. So I did, I had transitioned into the reserves.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I was just kind of like looking for that. I got to go to school. I knew I had to go to school. I didn't want to go to school right away as a 17-year-old because I just knew I'm probably going to flunk out. I want to party. And that's why I didn't want to go to college right away.
Where were you stationed? Like, what were the bases?
Norfolk. Got deployed like with the ship. I went to Kuwait. I went to Germany, deployments. After that, I was just kind of done.
So your duty station was all in Norfolk?
Mm-hmm.
See, it's like different with the Air Force, obviously, because like you're bouncing around like frequently. If you're single, it's typically like a 2-year tour, 2 or 3-year tour if you're overseas. And like my plan, I mean, I ended up getting medically discharged, so it didn't pan out. But I wanted to do like remote tour after remote tour because like you can go, if you go remote, which is a year tour, like you can go from that and then you automatically get whatever you request for your next base.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to just do like a bunch of remote tours, like a year in Turkey, a year in Japan, a year over here and whatever. And yeah, it would have been totally fucking cool, but it didn't work out. And yeah, I spent years after getting out of the military, like regretting just the way that all went down, because I made a lot of dumb decisions while I was in the Air Force.
I mean, I feel like as a box you have to check.
Yeah, I mean, I could have, looking back on it, hindsight always being 2020. There's a lot I would have done a lot better, and I think I had so many things going on back home that like I couldn't find my focus. Like when I was overseas, I was in England and I had amazing friends there. I had amazing leadership. Like everything about it was really like set up for me to succeed. And I was smarter than probably a lot of the people that I was around, from a book level, I mean? I can like figure things out. I can take my CDC courses and like ace them. It wasn't hard. Like none of the shit was hard for me.
Yeah.
But I was just bored. I had a lot of I was just bored. I was worried that like, I had FOMO, like I was missing out on shit back home. And it's like, dude, like what the fuck is wrong with me, man? Like I was so connected to home that I couldn't just kind of like focus on where I was.
Yeah.
And looking back as an adult now, I can look back and be like, man, like I was just a kid trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things going on with my mom back home that I kept having to come home like on emergency leave. They kept pulling me out like from like being where I was and just really excelling.
Yeah.
And so when I got out, I spent a lot of years, like when people say Happy Veterans Day, I fucking hated it. Hated it because I felt like that I could have done so much more.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I got medically discharged, but like I still could have done more while I was in. I could have like accomplished more. I could have like been more focused and stayed out of trouble because I was getting myself into trouble. I mean, like just like dumb shit. I was doing steroids and like, my opinion of it is like if you're in the military, there should be no rules against doing steroids. You know what I mean? Like why? I mean, especially like in the career field that I was in, I was a cop. It's like I'm not hurting anybody. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing steroids. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I feel like it's really fucking stupid, right? Where they can send you off to war, and this is just anybody, or you can get blown up overseas or whatever. Yeah. You can be 17 years old. You can join the military at 17, right? But you know, when I got out of boot camp to go get a cell phone, I almost broke down. Actually, I did break down with my brother. I called my brother, and I was like yelling at him. Yeah. they wouldn't let me sign for a fucking phone contract. Like with, Sprint, Verizon, whatever. They're like, you're not an adult. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, no,
just sign my life away.
Yeah. Now, my stepdad used to tell me all the time, like, he was very, like, religious and, was a rule follower for the most part. But one of the things he used to tell me was like, listen, like when you're 18 years old, if you want to have a beer in my house, like you're having a beer. If the government can take you from me to go and die for your country, you can have a beer in this house, you know? And that it's so ass backwards in this country in a lot of ways. And that's one of the ways where it's like, you take these kids that are 17, 18 years old to go fight, do your fucking bidding, but they can't have a fucking beer.
Yeah. It's bullshit.
And it's crazy. I mean, the only thing that I felt like there should be a little bit more counseling or mentorship in regards to drinking, because there were a lot of guys like being over in England. Excuse me. You adopt the rules of like the country that you're in, and so you could be 18 there and drink on base. Like you don't have to be 21. So here you are, like you're an American. Your whole life, you're groomed to know that you're like you can't drink until you're 21. I mean, we all did in high school. Most of us did, but like you can do it legally, not until you're 21. But you get overseas, and all of a sudden you're 18 years old, and you could literally just go to the bar and fucking drink, and no one gives a fuck. Yeah. And so here they are, all these like men and women away from home for the first fucking times in their lives, getting rowdy, just getting complete. Like honestly, it felt like a scene out of like Animal House. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, you know what I mean? Like everyone's like, "Oh, you didn't go to college like right after high school." And it's like, you know what? I kind of wish that I did. However, the experience I had in the dorms, like in the military, I think like far like outweigh any kind of craziness I would have done like in a college dorm. Yeah. Because it's just nuts. I mean, everyone's there and we're all like in the suck together and just getting fucking hammered. So I think it's bullshit that you can't drink when you're 18, but you can go die for your country. But I also do think that there should be some kind of like way of like mentoring these young kids that are overseas, so they don't fuck their lives up. Because there were a lot of dudes that are from backwoods nowhere, and then they go and they're like, oh, I'm having a fucking drink, and then they say, oh, it's a fucking problem.
Where you have people that have been in shelter their whole life, and then they're just like, holy shit, freedom. Yep. And then they go buck wild.
They go buck fucking wild, and that's like I'm glad that your recruiter actually brought that up with you about like warning you about what was going to happen when you got to your.
He's literally like, you're going to be fresh meat, like don't
totally
like.
And that's like a taboo topic, especially for a dude to say that to a woman, because like you don't know how to approach that. And I had this conversation with Tiffany as well, like where it's like that's just the reality of it, though. And it's not. There's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing malicious about it. It's just a bunch of young dudes and chicks that like want to fuck.
Too many fucking hormones.
Yeah, you got a bunch of hormones. You're going crazy.
like you're all trapped on a ship for 7.5 months, and then like as soon as I got there, people notice, you're new face. Right. So they try. Right. And you're either like on the ship, you're either a lesbian or you're a whore.
Right. So how did you manage it? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how do you manage that kind of, I guess, pressure? Because that would be a lot of pressure. Like, you're not a lesbian, but you also don't want to be labeled a whore. So like, how do you find that balance as a woman?
So for me, again, I didn't really care what other people thought, but I had like a hard rule ever since like I was that age, 17, 18 years old. Like, you don't get laid where you get paid. Don't shit where you eat type thing, Mm-hmm. And so that was one thing. I'm like, I don't care how attractive someone is, like in the workshop, like nothing, absolutely nothing, because I'm not going to sit here and say that I was promoted for a certain reason or she gets the easy job because of this. It's like, out of 4 females, I was the one that was always busting my ass doing stuff. And I was very lucky because I had 2 of the guys that were E5 and E6 at the time. Right. They took me under their wing and just kind of like taught me everything. Right. And they saw how I was. So like, you had this other chick, she was over there trying to be flirty and get out of work. The other one was just straight fucking lazy. And the other one just wanted to be a fucking secretary pet. Right. So I meshed well with the dudes growing up with guns. Yeah. That was the thing. I was super close with my brother growing up, so I naturally got along with the guys. I didn't get along with the girls because they were always trying to get out of work. Right.
Now, it's got to be a tough like spot to be like, because I can speak from a man's perspective, and it's like, I mean, we're not the most brilliant people on the planet, you know what I mean? And like, we're not, our minds, don't always think with the proper head, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's all on our minds is like, just trying to get laid, you know, like
Yeah.
however I get there, that's just what I'm gonna do.
And there's like hazing and for us, like I'm pretty chill, like pretty chill chick. So growing up like around dudes, like I have a lot of cousins that are dudes, but so I'm like I can handle my own. So like in my first command when this dude tried to grab my ass, like big fucking mistake.
Big mistake, buddy.
So I grabbed him by the throat and shoved him up against the gun locker. And I was like, if you ever put your fucking hands on me again, I was like, I'm going to cut your hand off. I'm going to mail it to your mother and ask her if this is the type of dude she raised. And he's like, and everyone's in the shop is like, holy fuck.
I bet you anything though, because of that experience, that dude never grabbed another chick's ass.
Good. I mean, it's
good,
especially if it's unwanted, because then not every chick is like me where I'm going to stand up and like, I'll hit you right back.
We fighting.
Yeah, we're fighting. But I saw a lot of chicks, that were very timid or very new or just didn't want to like step on anybody's toes, so they wouldn't say anything. And then they're like, I'm being harassed and whatnot. Where me, I'm like, you got to nip that shit in the butt right away.
Yeah. And it happens a lot. I mean, we had a lot of issues where sometimes it wasn't even really true, like where it could work both ways. There were some guys that were total fucking creeps. And they like grabbing girls' asses that it's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And if I would have saw something like that, I'd be smashing some dude's mouth, dude. Because it's like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? You don't just grab women, dude. That's fucking stupid.
No, and then like the
disgusting.
creepiness too. I mean, it's all over the ship. You never know.
Yeah.
I had my E5, like my LPO at the time. I was working on getting my surface warfare pin. And so you have to go around and get signatures and, learn about all the stuff on the ship. And so he stayed outside and I went in and this dude was like, my E5, he warned me. He's like, hey, that dude's like notorious for like trying to pick up chicks or whatever.
Yeah.
And I went in there and I was like growing my hair out because we were on deployment, because I had like the fucking shitty, like, short haired cut from fucking boot camp, and
butch cut.
Yeah, it was so fucking ugly. Still scarred for life. I will never fucking cut my hair again. But yeah, I go in there and I told him, I was like, hey, like I'm here to like get signatures from this department or whatever. And he's like, oh, he's like, I'm so glad like you're growing your hair out, like you pinned it back and like I can see your face. And I was like, I'm here for fucking signatures. I'm not here to fucking talk about my face. And I was like a baby 18-year-old.
Totally. But see, the thing is, like, most women wouldn't do that, especially when it's in a position of leadership. Yeah. And that's where we get into, like, like, we can go down the rabbit hole of, like, the Me Too shit. But, like, I think some of that's, like, maybe some of it is blown out of proportion, but some of it definitely is not. And I think there is this weird kind of, like, way that people in power like use that to their advantage in disgusting, deplorable ways. And it's like, dude, come on, man, like fucking get your shit together. Like that guy, and he probably wasn't used to having someone like you. Like,
no, he
like,
was.
Hey, fuckface, just sign my shit, dude. I'm out of here.
I was like, ask me what the fuck you have to ask me. I can answer it, and then sign my shit. But like, don't fucking talk about my hair. Don't talk about my face.
Yep. Fucking carry on, sir. Anyway,
weirdo.
So at what point, like when you were in the Navy, did you decide that, you know what, I'm not going to make this a 20-year gig?
When they start telling you like you can't survive without us, or like there's nothing out there really for you or whatever, I had put in to do. I had sat down with like one of the evals, and people don't like to hear the truth.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm very direct. I've always been very direct. So this one, going over my eval, he's like, oh, I'm not recommending you because I told him, I was like, yeah, I want to put in to go officer or something, because I thought it was like a good idea at the time. And he's like, I would not ever have you in my wardroom because like you're not basically politically correct. And he's like, I'm going to recommend you for instructor duty. I was like, yeah, no, I'm getting out.
Yeah. I mean, what is like the job that you did in the Navy, like what does it translate to in the civilian sector, if anything?
I mean, you could do stuff in the gun industry, but that's not like
a lot of gun bunnies out there making pretty good money.
I'm good. I'll pass on that shit. I actually know what I'm doing, so
right.
I mean, you could be an armor or something, or build shit on the side or whatever, but I just knew there was more to life.
Totally.
So that's why I decided to get out. And I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was taking like gen ed courses. Didn't know. I mean, I thought I wanted to be a registered dietitian at the time.
Yeah. But you were prepping and shit too at the time, weren't you? Or is that after?
Yeah, I was doing like a bodybuilding show and all that. So had like a very long conversation with like one of my best friends, and she was a heart transplant nurse, and sat down and talked with her, Shora, and her husband Silvio, who's like big brother to me. Yeah. And I decided, I was like, I'm going to change my major because it's the same amount of sciences where nursing is very competitive, but registered dietitian is even more competitive.
Right.
And it pays not that great, you know?
Yeah.
So I changed my major. I decided I'm just going to go to Hawaii. I mean, if you could be miserable in nursing school, I'd rather be on the beach.
Fuck yeah. No, it's crazy. Yeah. Fun fact is a lot of people, I don't know if some people know this, but I've always wanted to be an RN. Mm-hmm. And when I got out of the military, the first thing I did was went to school to be an EMT.
Yeah.
And I worked as an EMT, and it was the best job I ever had. I was like, dude, this is fucking so much fun. Like, part of the fun for me was that like a lot of the dudes that were working at the station with me were guys that I'd gone to high school with. So like I knew them all. And so it was like a bunch of bros.
A bunch of fucking locker room bullshit.
Yeah, just a bunch of locker room bullshit. We're all hanging out, flirting with nurses, and like just being fucking little idiots. But like, and the way that that company was set up was they set it up like it was like almost like a fire department. So like we actually had like, cause some of the other ambulance companies were like, you're posted in your ambulance, like in a different like location. You don't have a fucking station that you're going to. You're literally sitting in a fucking ambulance for 12 hours. And I'm like, dude, fuck that. But this one was set up to where like you actually had a station. So we cooked there. We would watch movies. We do whatever we had a room that was like all blacked out, always set to like 60 degrees. So we can go in there and pass out when we weren't working. And like, had a full like weight set and all kinds of other cool shit. So it was a fucking really, really cool job, and I wanted so bad for so many years. I was like, maybe I'll go to nursing school, and so I was like, I'll do the prereq. So I would start on the prereq track, and then something would come up in my life where like, okay, I don't have time for this right now. I gotta like stop. Yeah. And to this day, I'm 40 years old, and I'm still like, I could still probably do it. And
I think it's never too late. I mean, I was totally. I was in classes, with. I don't want to say teenagers, but straight out of freaking high school kids. And I mean, think we had like 50 something year olds in my class.
Right.
Like, to me, it didn't matter, I feel like it's never too late.
I think it's, for me, what I was looking for, or what I am looking for, is the same kind of like camaraderie that I had while I was in the military. And I think like with the nursing, for
you won't
me,
really find that in nursing.
Well, I like the fact that you could chop it up with people that aren't so fucking offended by everything. Like all the nurses that I was around when I was an EMT, like they have a morbid sense of humor.
Oh yeah.
They're funnier than fuck. And like they talk about the most inappropriate things, like pretty much all the time at the most inappropriate like times. And it's like, that's right in my wheelhouse. That's me.
Yeah, no, I've gotten told multiple times, like, Vic, like, not at the fucking dinner table. Right. Like, don't talk about this shit.
That, and like, I just love the idea of like, I think that certain people are made for that kind of line of work. And I think that it makes me feel good to know that like, I could do that. Mm-hmm. I could, if you put me in a stressful situation, like where I'm actually having to save somebody's life, I could step up to the plate, calm my emotions, calm my nerves, think critically, and actually do a good job, And I don't think everyone's wired that way. And so I think that was the other part of it, was like, I just wanted the challenge. I wanted the challenge of being able to control my emotions and think critically and fast and like be on my toes.
Yeah.
And I just love the idea of like the excitement that would create for me. Cause like I was at the time, like when I was thinking about like, because after EMT, I got into the elevator union, and then shortly thereafter went into the office and was working in corporate. Mm-hmm. So I'm like working in corporate America, and it's like, dude, this is like hell. This is like literally like
that
it's
would
like
be like
hell
the worst
on earth.
Nightmare. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Like you see these, and I think for me, I'm always like looking like further out into the future. I'm never like just in this moment. It's like, okay, like where is this going to lead me? Like what am I doing here? And so I would look at like other people that were working in the organization where it's like these dudes are like in their 50s, 60s, and it's like. And they're all miserable. They hate this shit. They're just doing it for a paycheck. And
plus, I'm like, the fact that you have to dress up all the time, like nursing, I'm like, I feel like I just wear pajamas to work, and I don't have to like brush my hair and.
Yep. And no one knew, like people that know me now, like, cause I'll friends on Facebook or social media or whatever, and they see my tattoos, they're like, oh shit, I never even knew you had tattoos. I'm like, yeah, you never would.
Yeah.
Cause like when I was in corporate, like I had to play this game. Like I was somebody that I really wasn't, And it's like, don't get it twisted. I'm still a hood, man. I'm just gonna whip your ass, And like, but you have to play this like, let's talk about this. Let me send you an email per my last email, all this like,
oh gosh,
weird kind of like dialogue. And I'm like, I could play that game. It's great. When you're in it, like whatever, but like it's just not who I am. I have zero interest. And so like right now I'm getting my MBA at TCU, and TCU is a top, I think it's in the top
very
50.
prestigious.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good school, and it's, it's not like super easy to get into. And so the caliber of like students that I'm around right now is way higher than any other college I've ever been to. The professors are a way higher caliber as well. But when I was going through the interviewing process, I was very clear with all of them. I said, hey, listen, like if you're looking for somebody, because you have to interview for the to get in. I was like, if you're looking for somebody who's like looking for this corporate gig, they want to like get this MBA and like work for this big corporation, I'm not that guy. Yeah. Like at all. And
but I think that's what sets you apart, right? Because I did the same thing with when you have to write like a letter of why you want to be in the nursing program. Right. And everybody else's letter is like the bullshit. Like, I've always wanted to save people's lives and I want to be a nurse for my whole life. And I'm like, hey, I just thought this was a great idea at the time. Yes. I'm like, I like blood. I like, I'm like, there's something out there in nursing. And I didn't know at the time you can go 100 different routes,
Totally. And that was the other part for me that was exciting. It was like flight nurse. You can do like, trauma. You can do cardiac transplants.
Yeah. I mean, and I get a fucking thrill out of chest reentry days, like cracking people's chests, going in there with a retractor. I just love it. Where other people, they see like a pint of blood and they're like passing out.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not for everybody for sure. But I think it takes, like I said, it takes a special person that's willing to do it. And who knows, maybe one of these days, like I can, when I'm done with the MBA and whatever, and then decide like, maybe I'll go to nursing school. And one of the other things I was thinking about recently was that I talked to my voc rehab counselor at the VA and was like, maybe I should switch from the MBA and do a master's in counseling. And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, why? I was, well, because I'm not going to go work for corporate. I mean, like the MBA is it'll teach me some skills, like to run my own company and to be more successful in entrepreneurship, and that's great. But counseling is like would be more exciting for me. Like I was telling my buddy today, he called me and he was like, hey man, how things going? So we were talking about the MBA and stuff. And he's like, man, I would love to get my MBA. He's like, that stuff like excites me, like accounting and like whatever. I was like, dude,
that shit's boring.
That is like, you might as well fucking like shoot me in the head. Yeah. Dude. Like I don't like, I'm sitting in class and it's like, it's great. I can do it. Like I have the intellectual capacity to like learn accounting and supply chain and all these things, but like it doesn't excite me at all. Like I'm not like, this is not exciting for me. But if you want to talk to me about mental health, you want to talk to me about like addiction recovery and like, healing and being the best version of yourself, like that kind of shit gets me excited. So I was like, man, maybe I can switch. So I asked him if it would be a possibility. He's like, well, I need to talk to my supervisor and then see if we can like switch it. So maybe I will, but if not, if they say no, you can't switch, then I'll just stick it out and continue to do the MBA and see what happens, go from there.
I would always challenge them though, because they told me a lot of stuff in nursing school where they were like, you can't do that, or actually the counselor, the admitting advisor or whatever the hell she was, she told me, don't bother applying, like you're not gonna get in. Right. She's like, nobody gets into nursing school their first try, and I'm like, fuck you. I'm gonna go ahead and apply. Yeah, and then I sat with her, right, because she was like dodging all my calls and everything. Yeah. So I went up to her office and she said, yeah, well, you need this class, and it's organic chem, biochem combined, right? She's like, you need to take the class, and we don't offer that in the summer. Right. And so I said, okay, so I'll just petition for it to be offered. And she's like, well, you'd have to have all your prerequisites done before the summertime. And I said, but she's like, but summer's not a real semester. I was like, you offer classes in the summertime, don't you? And she goes, well, yeah. I was like, then it's a real fucking semester. Yeah. And so I crammed and I petitioned for the class to be offered, because you don't just tell me no.
Yeah, for sure.
And got in. I got the conditional acceptance saying, as long as you pass this class and your other prerequisites are good, you can start nursing school.
So did you do your prereqs in Hawaii as well, or did you do them somewhere else?
Yeah, so I did gen ed in Virginia, and then I did my prerequisites. So when I say like, I didn't plan any of this shit out. I didn't plan any of this shit out. Thought it was a great idea, at the time. So one of my semester loads was like microbiology, anatomy 1 with the lab, statistics, chemistry, and
tough.
like something. Yeah, and that was like that was one of my worst semesters. That summer class that I took, that was the biochem, organic chem combined, online in 5 weeks.
Fuck that.
I was like, put me on a 9-month doployment. I'd rather do that.
Seriously. I'd be needing some fucking major Adderall to get through that shit.
Which is crazy because like I wasn't taking any of that stuff. I was just doping up on espresso.
Yeah. So when you like went to Hawaii to do your prereqs and to go to nursing school, like there was nothing. What was in Hawaii? Like you just were like, fuck it, I want to go to Hawaii.
So the guy I was like dating at the time, he also had just gotten orders there. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, I've never moved for anybody because I didn't have anything like serious relationship. Right. So I'm like, well, if it doesn't work out, like I have school to fall back on, and that's not gonna, kick me in the ass for, pursuing an education, which I didn't know at the time either. Like the dropout rate over there, because the surf's good.
Yeah, surf's good, brah.
Yeah, it's pretty high. So going there.
You're on island time over there.
Oh yeah, so always island time. Yeah. But I learned a lot. I ended up shipping my dog, Jigsaw. I actually got Tank there, but I shipped Jigsaw out there once I got everything settled in, and did a lot of paperwork to get a dog over to Hawaii because they don't have rabies. Right. So a lot of people just think that they can't bring their pets over there. Yeah. But it's a pain in the ass process work, but I guarantee you it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. Where in Hawaii were you?
On Oahu.
Okay. Where'd you stay? Like, what city? Like, were you like My brother was in Aiea, I think.
Okay, so Aiea is towards the west side. I stayed in Makiki, which is like between Waikiki and it's like right around Honolulu. It's not far. Cool. But I lived like 2 miles from the beach, so I used to run down to the beach and then run to the gym because I was a psycho.
There was I forget University of San Diego. I forget who the founders were or whatever. It was owned by the Jesuits, but whoever started it was basically had this belief that like, in order to study and retain like your information or whatever, it's better if you're in a beautiful environment. If you can sort of make your like campus like beautiful, it's like what better place to fucking go to a stressful nursing program than Hawaii? Yeah, it's like if you're studying, it's like, dude, I'm on the fucking beach, bitch. Like,
oh yeah, and if I'll have to pull up the picture like where I used to study. So my campus is on the windward side, so I would go over there and study, and I would wake up crazy early. Yeah. And go, I would be there at 6 a.m. studying. It was just so peaceful. Like, or I would study on the beach, which can be kind of difficult. Yeah. But no, there's no better way. That and some classical music, like piano, for me gets me just going.
Did you end up staying with the guy that you moved over there with?
No. So we got married, and that ended up not good. We got divorced.
I'm sorry.
We should have gotten an annulment, honestly.
Right.
There's a lot of issues. So he got stationed over in Virginia at Little Creek, and then once we split, like I just had to get the fuck out of Virginia Beach. Yeah. I needed time to heal.
Yeah, for sure.
So
you were in Hawaii and then went to Virginia, and then from there, where'd you go?
I finished my degree, and then he got orders over there. I met him out there, brought the dogs back. Right. Went to Virginia. I started there in Norfolk, Virginia, as a heart transplant nurse. Okay. So dealing with heart transplants, bypass patients, heart pumps, like all the cool shit that I think, to me, it's cool. A lot of people don't like that field. Right. Even nurses, the cardiac is very touchy. Some doctors don't even like messing with cardiac. Yeah. I met some like pretty sweet long life friends where like one of my friends, Angela, like we travel together. I try to get her on a contract. She tries to get me on a contract. Yeah. And we started out as, baby nurses together.
So you got in like from nursing school, went straight into cardiac?
Mm-hmm. So I didn't
is
like
that normal though?
So typically in nursing school, I'm actually glad you asked this, because in nursing school, they have this terrible stigma where they're like, you have to start on a regular floor, like med surge. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I'm like, you don't tell me what to do.
Right.
And I had a professor actually. So none of my professors really liked me. And there's a few people that can vouch for that. Two professors really took me under their wing. This one professor, she pulled me. I was in the cath lab. Like, this is kind of where I found out, like, I love this shit. I was in the cath lab, and the nurse had told me, hey, just so you know, we respond to our own codes, blah, blah, blah. And she's going on, and she's like, but that never happens down here, right? So I go to lunch, and I come back, and the fucking patient's coding. And I looked at her, and I was like, I thought you said that it doesn't happen down here. She's like, fuck. But one of the professors, she had actually sought me out after I was kind of voluntold to go be the student voice at the faculty meetings, because I don't shut the fuck up and I bring up issues when people aren't,
Willing.
they're not willing to bring anything up. Yeah. And so she kind of took me under her wing, and as the code was going on, she was drawing the heart, and she's like, hey, he nicked, the LAD or whatever, and, he nicked this or whatever. So the doctor actually fucked up. So the patient ended up dying. But she's sitting there drawing the whole heart and the arteries and everything. And to me, like, it just fascinated me. And she told me after that day, she goes, you need to be in critical care. She's like, that's where your brain is. Yeah. So I would do extra study with her outside of class. She basically put me through her critical care internship, like, off the books. Yeah. But nurses that had been nurses for at least 2, 3, 4 years that she was putting through her program, she put me through it. So, like, I adore her. I mean, I just thought, like, she was a nurse goddess. Yeah. That's where I found out, I'm like, I belong in critical care. And then I found out about heart transplants and cardiothoracic surgery, like CVICU, and we have a stigma, we're like arrogant. We look down on the other nurses and whatnot, and we know it all. Yeah. But it's just, for me, that's where my thing is. Like, I can't stand OB. I can't stand peds. Everything else, I'm like, they talk too much.
What's funny is there was somebody I had on the podcast once, and he was so fucking right, where he said that our destiny is largely shaped by our leadership. And all it took was that one lady to take you under her wing and kind of show you something, and then it's like, it changed the course of, like, where you're going to end up. Well, and if you would have had all those professors that didn't like you, and, like, those are the only influences you had, it's like, who knows? You'd probably still be in fucking med surg right now.
Look, they tried to kick me out of nursing school every fucking semester.
Why? For what?
Just stupid shit, because they refused to teach accordingly, and I would bring it up, and for us, in your nursing school, typically your first semester, you'll take like a dosage calculation type class, right? But they didn't teach you shit. And my brain worked to where I could figure some of the problems out, but I couldn't put them on paper. Right. And so the other professor, he was retired Army. He basically took me aside, and he was like, you're just a little stupid. Like, just like in a joking way. He's like, you're just a little retarded. Like, we learn backwards. He's like, I struggled with the same thing. So he sat me down and taught me his way. 'Cause I mean, I hadn't taken math in years. Yeah. So sat me down, and I mean, we were really, really cool. And I was one of maybe like 2 or 3 people that understood his really dark, fucked up humor. Yeah. So he also took me under his wing and just kind of taught me everything. He's the one that voluntold me to be the student voice for the faculty meetings and whatnot. Yeah. Got me involved with the Student Nurses Association, which I did not want to be a part of. I just wanted to lay low. Yeah. But where they went wrong was one of our professors, she held a meeting, and she's like, are there any, like, questions, comments, or concerns? And I was like, yeah. And I just opened and like, diarrhea of the mouth, Yeah,
for sure.
And so Dr. Dunham, who's the Army guy, he comes up to me and he's like, you have a very loud voice. And I asked him, I looked at him, I was like, is that a problem? And then he was my mentor at the time, because they assign you a mentor. Because they have, people like committing suicide during nursing school.
Oh, wow.
And for me, like, that was never like a problem, because I'm like, there's worse things in life. So
isn't that funny though, that, like, not funny, but, like, I remember thinking that in boot camp I had there was a couple guys that were attempting suicide. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking when we were going through the investigation and all the stuff that you go through when that happens, like, is this really the worst shit they've ever been through?
And it makes me wonder, like, how sheltered their life was, which
Totally.
isn't their fault. You know?
No, not their fault at all. But it's like, it makes me wonder, like, wow, dude, what would be the course of like the world if like nobody ever experienced hardship? If you never had to do some uncomfortable ass shit, if you never had to experience like going a couple days without fucking eating, like even like that, just experiencing something hard. Like it's
no, and it's all mental, for like those out there that it's probably gotten extremely soft now, but for me, I'm like, oh, like my recruiter told me, he's like, it's all fucking role play. They're going to be yelling at you. I'm like, no different than at home.
Totally. I mean, it's all a game. And that's like, if you can like tap into that, I think in every area of your life, like if you can tap into like, whether it be nursing school, whether it be boot camp, then it's just a fucking game. Like you're just trying to play the game within the confines of their rules a little bit, bend them where you can, but fucking just get through it. It's just a fucking game, like, that's it.
And even at 17, I had like a really good, like resting bitch face. So it got to the point where like, I just, the chief pulled me aside and he's like, I'm concerned about you. And I'm like, why?
Dude, that's so fucking funny.
And
right now.
Yeah, and he's like, you show no emotion.
Totally.
And I'm just like, everything's secured, like that's what they say, smiling secured, this is secured or whatever.
Right.
And so he's like, I need you to smile. And I was like, no, chief. I said, smiling secured. Like, am I dismissed? And he's like, where are you from? Like Texas.
So they, when I was going through boot camp, I was the dorm chief, which is, I don't know, I think they call it RPOC in the Navy, I think.
Yeah.
So like, you're in charge of like your flight or whatever. And so if the drill instructor's not around or whatever, like everything falls on your shoulders. Like you're the leader of the group. And I remember one of the drill instructors was like, he's like, hey, we think you should go see like a counselor or whatever. I'm like, for what? He's like, you don't ever smile. You don't laugh at our jokes. Yeah. And I was like, sir, I'm not here to laugh. I'm not here to like I'm not here to have fun. Like I'm here to graduate. Like that's the only reason I'm here is just to graduate.
Yeah.
And that's how my brain kind of works. Like if I'm in something that sucks, I literally check the fuck out. Like, I just check
tunnel
out,
vision.
like tunnel vision where I'm not, I just want to get through it, put my head down and fucking go.
Yeah.
And, I was telling somebody this story the other day. Like I was at being the dorm chief, like you sit like at a separate table than the rest of your flight.
Yeah.
And so everyone eats first. You're the last one to eat. And so you go to this table and I'm just like, I'm so hyper focused on like what my next like mission is. Like I get the fuck out, eat my food, get the fuck out of here and like go do my shit. And so I had my foot like outside of the table and I was just fucking macking down on this food, trying to get done with it, And I heard like somebody like, cause there was a table with all the drill instructors that they sat at, the snake pit, they called it. And I heard someone say like, put your fucking foot under the table, trainee. And I was like thinking to myself like, oh, someone's about to get it right now. Not knowing it's me that he's fucking talking to, And I'm like, and all of a sudden I feel his hot ass breath just breathing all over me. And so I tightened my lip, cause I was fucking pissed and he's fucking screaming at me, And he's like, you fucking want to hit me? I'm like, fuck, dude. Yeah.
Like in my mind, I already have.
Yeah, totally. But that's kind of like how I've always operated. And it's funny that you said that. Like, people look at that and they think that's weird. Like that you don't smile or you don't fucking laugh. And it's like, I'm just in the zone, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just trying to get through this. Like how you guys are getting through it, how you do with your humor or however else you want to, tell your jokes, play grab ass. Like I'm just not that. I'm super serious. Like, I just want to get through. That's it.
Yeah. My, like even during like when we code people, in the hospital, I'm like, the fucking person that's always cracking fucked up jokes. Yeah. Fucked up jokes. It's just, even the guys are like, dude, what the fuck?
Took it a little far there, V Linz. Nah. And somebody told me one time, I was at work and it was somebody I knew. Like I had known him since I was a kid and he was in the same industry. And he ended up being my boss, which was was totally unexpected. I came in to interview and all of a sudden like this guy Paul comes walking around the corner. I'm like, fuck, dude, I hadn't seen him in like fucking years. So he gives me a big old hug and like, I'm like, yeah, I got the fucking job. I don't really even need to interview. But we were in a meeting or something like that. And something was happening at work. And he said something to me and I just kind of was like, hey, all right, yeah, whatever. I'm busy, like doing my thing. So he kind of like pulls my shoulder and like turns me around. He's like, dude, you need to lighten up. And I was like, fuck, dude. And I was like, all right, and so I didn't say anything, but I walked back to I had a stand-up desk, so I was at my stand-up desk and remember sitting there being like, man, maybe I do need to lighten up. Maybe I'm just fucking wound too goddamn tight, you know? Like, I need to fucking take it easy. And so I've been trying in my older age to not take shit so seriously and try and find the silver linings and try to find, like, the humor in things and try to find, like, try to keep things light, you know, because I'm very fucking rigid in a lot of things.
Yeah, I can be.
Yeah, and I try to be, like, a little bit more laxed and more like just trying to take it easy, you know?
Yeah.
I don't have a good balance with that though, you know?
I feel like I do, but most people just don't see that, right? So one of the hospitals I was at, it was like a Catholic, whatever, like very Jesus-y hospital.
Jesus.
I'm not religious by any means. So when you have like the Catholic priest walking around and he's like blessing everyone with his holy water, and he gets to me and he throws holy water. I'm like, hey, like have the courtesy to ask, you know?
Yeah.
And he had never been talked to like that.
Right.
And everyone else around me is like, holy fuck, you know, like
you just talk to the Father.
You just talk to the Father like that. And I'm like, hey, look, and I told him, I said, no disrespect, but I'm not religious and like I don't want holy water thrown on me.
Yeah.
And because growing up, I mean, this is why we would get pulled out of church by like our fucking ear. We would take holy water and spray it on each other and be like,
yeah.
My grandma and my mom wanted to fucking whoop our asses.
Yeah, for sure. So you grew up Catholic?
So my grandma was very strict Catholic. Yeah. She really forced that on my mom, and my mom didn't really force anything on us. But when grandma was around, you had to go to church. Yeah. And I got to the point where I was 10. I mean, again, stubborn as hell, can't tell me what to do, and I was like, I don't want to go to church.
Yeah.
And my grandma was like, why? I'm like, because I think religion was put there to put people in order. Slap.
Yeah, maybe no, but you know, a lot of people don't want to talk about that. It's funny because I think a lot of people nowadays with access to information, you know, and the ability to like do your own research now. Like, because before cell phones, before the internet, it's like you kind of just believed what you were told. You kind of believed, like, maybe you had some books you could fucking read, you know, and like.
And I was like the one that questioned everything all the time.
Totally, yeah. I mean, and that's not welcomed in that world.
Oh no,
like at all. I mean, I remember it's actually what made my stepdad and I very close was that he was very religious, and although I was very religious just by proximity because I was around it so much, and I bought into it fully and completely as a kid, I still questioned everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And I think because of that, it kind of made our relationship better because he's like, man, this motherfucker, like, he just will not accept. Like, he's trying me. He won't like just accept like what I'm telling him. He wants to know why. And I encourage that in my kids now, like where it's like, I want you to ask questions.
You should challenge everything.
Challenge everything. Don't just like authority is like, you know, it's great to respect authority when it's warranted, not just blindly. And I'm finding that now, even like in their school. Like I went to their school today because my 5-year-old got student of the month, and so like we go to the school and you're inside the lunch shelter and it's like shh. They can't even fucking talk, and it's like they're fucking kids. They're 5, you know, like
fucking let them. Yeah,
they're in the lunch shelter. Like let them fucking talk, you know. And it's like. So as a dad, like I'm kind of looking at that, and like there's a part of me that's like the militaristic part where like, no, you follow orders, you know, be disciplined and blah 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 blah. And the other part of me is like, nah, man, be a free spirit, man. Like just fucking, you know, talk and do your thing. You're fucking 5, like be a kid, you know. Don't make these kids like it almost feels like they're grooming them to be these little fucking minion fucking order followers. And it's like I'm not that at all. So it's like I don't want my kids.
And I feel like that really interferes with their coping skills.
100%.
So like my nephew, he's up in the DFW area. He's a little kid that I'll post, and he's 7, and he's like, if you ask him like, are you gonna wear a mask to school? And he's like, no, this is America. So his parents, you know, we were all deployed together, and we're super close. They let him be vocal and be his own free spirit. Like the kid is a genius. Gets in trouble though, like. And so they're always like, hey, he acts just like you. Yeah.
I mean, you know, like that's the thing though, is like when you're getting kids, like when kids are getting in trouble for voicing their opinions on things, or when they're voicing their convictions on things, it's like, no, I don't feel that that's right. Yeah. And I'm going to speak out. It's like, yeah, good for you. You should speak out.
Yeah. And they encourage him. They're like, we don't filter him. We don't tell him, you know, this or that. He is his own little person.
Yeah. As he should be. That's where I think parents kind of like, there's no guidebook to parenting. You're going to do the best you can with what you got. You're going to do the best you can with the toolbox that you were given. But I'm trying my best to realize that at the end of the day, like, I don't own my kids. They don't fucking belong to me. They're my kids. And yes, I want them to be well behaved, and I want them to, you know, be like the best versions that they can be of themselves, and like and live to their highest potential, whatever that may be.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I want them to be their own people. I want them to have their own thoughts, their own ideas. And so it's something like where, even with the way that like my 5-year-old dresses, like he dresses fucking ridiculously. Like it's like some of the shit he wears, I'm like, what the fuck are you wearing?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, why do I give a fuck what he's wearing? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if this is his way of expressing his own individuality, like, I'm cool with it. Like, you don't look, I mean, you look, if you feel like you look good, like you want to wear fucking knee-high socks and you want to wear your...
Own it.
Yeah, own it, dude. Like, like today, we went to the fucking, the Student of the Month assembly thing, and he had like shorts on, his, Alito t-shirt on, and green knee-high socks, you know? That's his jam. That's what he wants to wear. It's like, you don't really match, dude, but like, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you feel it looks good, go for it, dude.
Like, my nephew comes home from school and he fucking strips down to his underwear and like his cowboy boots, and he just wants to play in the dirt outside.
Dude, my kind of dude.
Like,
that's
he
awesome.
doesn't want, he's nowhere near the TV, nowhere near the iPad. Like, he's outside.
Yeah.
He's got a little bow and arrow. Like, I mean, other kids are not growing up like he is. And he chooses to do this.
No, he's gonna be well balanced kid as a result. You know what I mean? And he'll be leaps and bounds above other people that are living inside of a fucking box. I want to talk about. I mean, now that we're talking about, you brought up the I'm not wearing a mask because this is fucking America. Yeah. We're gonna go down a little rabbit hole real quick if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all.
Being that you're in nursing, and on the front lines, what a lot of people don't know is that like you actually went and volunteered and worked in New York when all this shit was popping off. You were in LA, right? Working in LA when the shit was popping off, air quotes.
Yeah.
And I just want to pick your brain on it because I think there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this episode and want to know. Everyone's looking for the truth. Everyone's like, because you don't, like, most people are like, they come home from work, they sit in front of the goddamn TV, and all they're seeing is what mainstream media is fucking feeding you. You don't know.
Which is why I don't own a TV. If you look anywhere, I don't have TV and I don't have Wi-Fi.
Yep, we don't have a TV. We do have a TV in our house, but it's not connected to anything. It's connected to an Xbox, so the kids can watch like Netflix or like whatever on it.
Yeah.
But same shit, because it's like I don't believe any of the bullshit I'm being fed anyway. So like I'm not gonna watch it, and I'm not gonna pay for fucking cable. It's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you what that was like, number one, being like in the middle of all of it, what you believe to be true about it, about the pandemic, and kind of what your stance is, because I think it's important because you are on the front lines. You're in the shit. So like, what's your stance on all of it?
So I was in Vegas when all this shit popped off.
Yeah.
And we took care of the food server. They got the Bellagio shut down and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So what I noticed right away is stuff just wasn't making sense. And I have a very strong intuition. Yeah. And I was just kind of like red flag after red flag after red flag, right? So back then you were waiting like a week for COVID, tests to come back or whatever. Yeah. But you had to treat everyone like they were on or not everyone, but certain, quote unquote symptoms. Yeah. You had to treat them like they were on isolation. And so like no one really knew what it was. And for me, I'm like, I was in the Navy, like I probably got exposed to worse shit, Yeah,
definitely.
So I wasn't that concerned with at least myself.
Yeah.
But what I didn't like was when you start tagging deaths as COVID positive, when you're not getting test results back before they fucking died, like you cannot do that. And I wasn't okay about that. And I was very vocal about it, right? I was very vocal about people coming in needing bypass because they had a heart attack. And they're like, well, they might have COVID. I'm like, okay, cool. So you're not going to fucking operate on them. So they're just going to die anyway. And then you're just going to, you're just going to tag them as COVID. Yeah. Yep. So that bothered me. As much as I say I don't like people, I did join to do cardiac surgery because I love the thrill of it. I love that it's constant brain stimulation for me. And no matter what, I mean, you're not there to do wrong, you know?
Right. You're there to be the voice of the voiceless. Like
yeah,
they can't talk. So it's like, you're there to be their advocate.
Yeah. I'm like, and I will be the first one to fucking go in there and jump on you and crack your fucking chest. Like, right. I have no problem doing that. I'm at a weird, like, I'm my calmest when something like that is happening. Right. So, and then you had like the nurse educator coming around and she's telling us like, we can wear a bandana to work. And I'm just like, and I'm sitting there eating and drinking, which you're not quote unquote supposed to do at the nurse's station. And I'm like, hey lady, you just told me I can wear a bandana to work. I was like, where I come from, I was like, that's the fucking wild, wild west. And you're typically robbing banks at that point if you're wearing a bandana. Yep. So I was like, I'm going to keep eating my fucking food. Yeah. I was like, your rules, like your SOPs, I was like, can go in the fucking trash can for all I care. It was like very unsafe too. Vegas is really weird. They don't believe in restraining people. Like, and so when you have patients with tubes down their throat and, you know, they wake up, how would you feel, right? How would you feel if you woke up and you don't remember shit? You just got a fucking tube down your throat. It's forcing air down and into your lungs. You're going to panic. Like, you're like, where the fuck am I?
Start pulling.
Yeah, you're going to grab and start pulling. And if that's your only lifeline, like, that's an issue. Yeah. So it was very unsafe with that. So I told him, I was like, look, you're hiring on nurses same time as me for $1,500 more a week. Like, you can either match my pay because I'm a traveler. Like, I don't officially work for your hospital. I was like, or you can consider today my last day. Because I didn't like the corruption that I saw right away. So they didn't want to raise my pay, so I was just like, fuck it, consider today my last day. Yeah. And they didn't think I was gonna fall through with it. Yeah. So after that, you know, I was watch the news here and there, and you know, LA County, they're like, we're drowning in the ICUs and just we can't, like, just stay home, you know, if you get sick, you're getting everyone else sick. So I was like, I don't typically run from fear. Yeah. I kind of like, I have to see this for myself. So I went over there, and hospitals were pretty empty. Yep. And the hospitals are so empty that they canceled my contract 2 weeks in and refused to give me a written statement, like written paperwork saying low census for, you know, whether you wanted to go for unemployment or if you wanted to go for another job or whatever. So that really raised an eyebrow with me because the patients that we were taking care of in the ICU, I was on nights, the ones that were dying were like 300 pound people with diabetes, hypertension, you know, obviously obesity. And that's kind of like I called it the trio then, yeah. Which even in a month between March and April of 2020, I noticed a pattern, right? These people are coming in, obesity, hypertension, diabetes, smokers, previous lung damage, you know, so you're talking, you know, and I said it then within the first month was like, these people have at least 3 comorbidities. Right. And now, you know, the CDC saying that they have four or more. I think
average was 4.
I kind of stopped listening.
Yeah.
Or even caring. Oh, I stopped caring a long time ago what they had to say. But it just didn't make sense to me. And so when they wouldn't give me like a statement saying that they canceled me due to low census, even though they were screaming to the world saying that they were drowning, the ERs were fucking empty.
Yeah. I was driving around because like when I watched like tidbits, not on the news, I never had fucking cable, but like I would see it on my phone or whatever, social media and whatnot. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to drive around and just look at the ERs and just see like what I can see from the outside, see what's happening. There was fucking nobody.
Yeah.
And it was like, if it was a real like pandemic in my mind, I was like, I would at least know some people that are fucking dying.
Yeah.
It's like, and all the people I knew that had it, like I had COVID, a bunch of the people my friends of mine, they all had COVID and we were all fine. Like I was back in jiu-jitsu like within a matter of like 5 or 6 days. Like I was totally cool. And that wasn't because like 5 and 6 days I was fucking laid the fuck up. It was like the first 2 or 3 days of COVID for me was like, I just had a real bad headache. Like I would stand up and I felt kind of lightheaded and like just had a headache and like, so I was like, I'm just going to take it easy.
So that was my thing, right? When I got COVID, I had just buried like a good buddy of mine. And then I flew out to bury Seth in Idaho. And the next day, Jigsaw stopped eating, which is my dog of 11 and a half years who I loved more than anything in this world.
Right.
So I came back to having to put him down, right? So I wasn't eating or drinking anything because I was drinking water, which doesn't have a taste.
Right.
And I had no appetite. Like when I say pretty fucking depressed, I was pretty fucking depressed. Yeah. And then I got a call from like one of the guys and he's like, hey, I have COVID. I'm like, are you dying? He's like, no, dickhead. He's like, we were all drinking out of the same bourbon bottle. So I was like, oh, okay. So, and I thought like I chalked up the headache to crying, because I was just in a bad spot.
Yeah, not eating, crying.
Yeah, not eating, crying,
not
like probably
properly.
dehydrated, not sleeping.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't realize like I didn't have a taste because I wasn't eating. So I went and got tested not for my own like reasons. My roommate at the time, like she was immunocompromised. So I went and got tested and the VA's like, are you sure you're okay? And I'm like, yeah, I just can't smell or taste. Like my headache will probably go away once I stop fucking crying. Right. So it was minor. I mean,
yeah, it's not that bad. And that's where, like, for me, like, I think, and I told you this before the last time we talked, was that I appreciate so much that from the very beginning, your stance has always been the same. Like, there's something wrong here. This is bullshit. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid of it. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. Wake the fuck up, people. Stop being sheep, blah, blah, blah. But for me, and I'm not afraid to say this, like, I didn't fucking know. So, like, I was like, I'm going to hunker down and do what they're saying right now because I don't fucking know what this is. I mean, fucking who knows?
Well, yeah, you'd like to think that you're being correctly advised.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. So I thought, like, oh, this may be a thing, and, like, people are really fucking dying. And, like, my main concern was, like, if I get taken out, who's going to take care of my family?
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to kind of just like make sure that I'm protecting them and make sure everything's all good to go. And the other part for me that was really fucking weird was that it's a fucking virus, a respiratory virus, but people are going out buying toilet paper. And it was like, I was in the military. Like, I don't give a fuck about toilet paper. Like,
some people were hoarding toilet paper. Others were, setting up their mags.
Exactly. I was like, dude, I don't give a fuck about toilet paper. Like, there's a fucking garden hose. Like, I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that fucking big of a deal. Like, people were rushing out and buying it. And it's like, so for me, it was more like, I was just losing faith in humanity. I was like, dude, humans are just generally fucking stupid. And
yes,
that's where I was like, okay, if shit really does get bad here and like there's chaos in the fucking streets, I was more concerned with like, how much ammo do I have?
Yeah.
Are all my mags stacked? Like, am I fucking good to go? Like, and that's what
people in Vegas were like lining up outside the fucking gun stores for ammo, guns. Yep. I mean, there's a lady, she's literally like, I don't want to wait in this line. Like, can I just get like a taser? And I was like, you might as well just fucking slit your wrist. Like, a taser? Come on.
And the suffering, just fucking kill yourself.
Like, that was just out of control, And then in LA, like, I was getting kicked out of places because I was like not wanting to put a mask on. Yeah. And so my buddy actually, before I went to LA, he had gotten me this like Trump bandana, and I was like, I'm set, driving my F-250 into fucking LA
with a Trump bandana.
With a Trump bandana.
You're asking to get in a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, people are. It was kind of dicey, like when you would go into places, and I think what was happening, just in my opinion of it, was that it was the one time that a lot of people that are weaker and just generally fucking pussies, it gave them the opportunity to like try to punk other people, like, hey, motherfucker, put your mask on. It's like, bitch, you would never.
Yeah, they think they're real fucking ballsy now.
It's like, dude, you're being like self-righteous, and like you think you're like doing the world a favor by fucking bitching at me, and it's like, at the end of the day, like, if this weren't the situation, like if there wasn't this fucking pandemic, you wouldn't ever even speak to me like that. Ever in a million years.
No, hell no.
Ever talk to me like that, because I would punch you in your fucking mouth. And it's like, but it gave these people this like sense of like
entitlement to like I'm going to correct you, or I'm going to,
or create a scene. And like, I was in Sprouts, and
I've gotten kicked out of that place.
Man, I kept getting kicked out, and I was like, God damn, like, because I was not wearing a mask. I was like, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm just not down with it. I'm not playing the game. I trust my immune system. I'm good, you know? And I was hiking every day. Like, I just didn't give a fuck. I told you, like, the beginning, I hungered down for like a week, maybe 2, because I didn't know what the fuck it was. And I was like, dude, I don't know what this is. Let me gather some information, some data, and then I'll make a better, like, informed decision. And then after about 2 weeks, it's like, hey, this is bullshit. I'm moving on. And so I'll go to Sprouts because that's where I would shop. And, like, they kept kicking me out. And one of the guys, like, I walked through the entire fucking store, got whatever I needed, get to the register, and he fucking starts grabbing shit out of my hands. I'm not ringing you if you're not wearing it. He's like grabbing shit. I'm like, dude, you're so lucky. I'm not trying to sound like a badass or whatever, but it's like, you're lucky, dude, that I'm with my kid right now. Like, you're lucky because, like, dude, you're fucking grabbing shit out of my hands, dude. Like, you're putting your fucking hands on me.
That is
dude.
way
Like,
too close for my.
Yeah, and I'm not down with that shit. And that's where it started getting weird for me because people were feeling like justified, entitled, that was acceptable for you to fucking grab.
They're
shit.
like patting themselves on the back because they think that they're being a fucking man, or
they're saving the world, you know. And it's like, you're saving grandma. And it's like, listen, man, like I get it. You guys are being fed this like all kinds of bullshit, and you're buying it, and that's totally cool. But like, did you know? Like, I mean, you talked about in Vegas how you felt there like there was a lot of corruption, like everything was being labeled COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got to LA. Did you see anything different there? I mean,
same shit.
kind of shit?
It's corruption, like them screaming to the world. Started figuring out that they were in a lot of places, they were intubating patients entirely way too early. Patients that didn't need to be intubated, they just needed to, increase their workload a little bit.
So was it true though that, like, and I don't know if you know this or not, but like, was it true that they were getting paid for every COVID diagnosis and every COVID death? Were hospitals being paid for that?
And the ventilators. So everything was being incentivized. So ventilators, I think we're starting at like 38, 39K per vent. This is why, New York was claiming that they were running out of ventilators. It's like, yeah, because you were fucking intubating people entirely way too early. They didn't need to be intubated.
Right. How many lives could have been saved? You know what I mean? And that's where.
Well, I would say a lot more if the fucking media wasn't headstrong over everything and influencing everything, because you had nurses, and this is LA. So when I got to LA, this is the weirdest thing I've ever fucking saw, right? Like in the critical care world, we titrate or wean medications like cardiac meds and all kinds of other stuff, right? Typically you'll have like an arterial line in, and you have to level it, and then you have to zero it, right? And you have to zero it, several times a shift. Right. Make sure you're getting the accurate thing, make sure they're getting like the appropriate medication. And I walked in, and one of the first patients I took care of, like, the fucking line hadn't been zeroed. It hadn't been zeroed in like a week.
Right.
So I'm like, great, we're pumping this guy full of, like, no wonder we can't get his fucking pressure up. It's not because his pressure's fucking low, and all the Levofed and the Vaso that we're dumping into him, it's just like the fucking A-line wasn't, that's straight fucking negligence.
Right.
Like, you chose not to go in the room because you're titrating stuff from the outside. They were bringing all the IV poles and the fucking everything on the other side of the doors so they could access it from outside.
So what part, I mean, like I said, like in the beginning, I didn't know enough to be like, to even make a decision about how I was going to react to what was being put out. But for the nurses that were working in these hospitals, with the education that you guys have, did you know like the shit that they were doing, the protocol or the way that they were treating these patients? Did you know that it was fucked up? Like, dude, this is wrong. Like, why are we doing this? Or are you just trying to figure it out too?
In the beginning, we're just kind of trying to figure out like what the best course of action was
to stabilize them.
To stabilize them, yeah. And then, I mean, when I say stuff was being incentivized, because of political influence, Trump took Plaquenil, hydrochloroquine. So,
right.
That was like a banned in the hospitals or whatever. Ivermectin was, banned. Yeah. And I asked one of the doctors recently when I said, like, I have ivermectin on stock. And I said, it's been shown to work. I said, why don't you prescribe it? I said, why are you prescribing remdesivir? Like, remdesivir is fucking trash. It's
like liver
killing,
toxic, right?
Yes, it's killing like their organs.
Yeah.
And they end up going into like organ failure. And typically they'll give it on the floor, and they digress and end up in the ICU. And he's like, well, our hospital policy is that we can only give remdesivir. And I said, doesn't that make you fucking question like what you're doing here? I said, the fact that the hospital is telling you can't prescribe a certain medication. I said, for what reason? And he didn't have a good answer for me.
And I think that's where we get like in a weird fucking place where it's like when doctors, the people that we're entrusting with our lives to save our lives should we ever need it, are being handcuffed essentially, and willingly being handcuffed, where it's like that doctor, I'm sure, knew with his education and everything else, like, I know that ivermectin could work. I know that hydroxychloroquine could work, but my hospital's telling me I can't give it. It's like, are you their bitch? Like, what's going on here, dude? You know what I mean? Like, I get it because from a standpoint of like, you're providing for your family. A doctor makes, substantial amounts of money.
But in the hospital, we've never stopped at one. Like, oh, hey, you have this. We can only give you this antibiotic, and if it doesn't work, you're fucked. Like we don't do that. Yeah,
that's corrupt as fuck. And I think that's where like being outside of medicine, being that I'm not in, I'm not an EMT anymore, and I'm not a nurse, but like just being an outsider and like looking in, where it's like the other day where they canceled the use of monoclonal antibodies for emergency use authorization. It's like, how are you going to cancel monoclonal antibodies because they don't work allegedly against Omicron variant, but neither do the vaccines?
Yeah.
They're not
didn't
working
realize
for
that
Omicron
they were rolled
either.
out way before the quote unquote variant, the next variant.
Right. And so it really like, I just don't understand. And we talked about it before this podcast, how people are being fed like so much shit where it's like they're getting COVID. Like, because in the beginning, it's like, get vaccinated so you don't get COVID.
That was the quote from the senile old man at first. Yeah.
The guy sitting in the White House. It's like, get vaccinated so you don't get COVID. And then it was, get vaccinated because if you do get COVID, it won't even be severe. Then it's like, you'll still get COVID. It won't be severe, but you can't pass it. Then it's like, it kept changing.
While one of the contracts I was on, the amount of people that were coming in, getting admitted to the ICU they had the clot shot already.
Right.
Why they were so sick.
Yeah.
And you had people, I call it the clot shot for a reason. Some of these guys were coming in with, clots, ended up being into PEs, and they're just dying.
Yep. And that's the weird part about it is that all you're seeing in the mainstream media, though, is that it was like, they kept saying it. Like, it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
It's not, though, because I'm
true.
No, I'm not, and I refuse. And I wasn't going to the hospital. I'm the type of person, if I'm sick, I'll fucking tough it out. Like, I'll tough it out. I'm not even going to, I have antibiotics on hand. I'm not going to take them unless I absolutely need it. If you have a fever, in my mind, you should suffer. Let your immune system take a little bit over and let it fight it out. Unless you're trying to like go to work, because before all this, we went to work sick. Right now, the nurses that are vaccinated at work, they can work with COVID.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the part where it's like, dude, when is any of this shit going to make sense? And I think for a lot of people that we're still like living through it. It's like, I posted on social media, yesterday, I think it was, that I posted something because like someone had posted like, I got COVID. I was down for 3 days. And, then I bounced back, and it's like, thank God I was vaccinated. And it's like, that has got to be the dumbest shit. The dumbest fucking sales pitch for a vaccine I've ever fucking heard in my life, dude. No. Like, number one, like, how do you know that you would have fared any differently if you weren't vaccinated? How do you know with 100% certainty that vaccine is what made your symptoms what they were or were not? Mm-hmm. How do you fucking know? You don't fucking know because you're not unvaccinated, so you don't fucking know.
And I'll take my chances on something, like I'm not getting something that is experimental.
Yeah. And I decided, and I posted right after that. I posted because I was just fucking annoyed. And then I posted again and said, this is the last time that I post anything about COVID and its fucking stupidity ever again on social media. I'm not fucking doing it anymore. And the reason I'm not doing it, because I feel like the fact that we're still talking about it, we're still dealing with it 2 years later, part of why it's still happening is because we're all still talking about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we just stop talking about it, it'll just go away.
Yeah.
It's like, just take away its power. Like, just stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Most of us have already all had it.
Mm-hmm.
We're
not multiple times, you know.
Totally. So I think like I went to Mississippi January 5th, I think it was, or 6th or something, beginning of January. And I got back and I got sick. And I was like, oh shit, like I guess this might be the Omicron or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, I just had my antibodies checked in November, the end of November, and I still had antibodies. So I was like, oh, they said that it's evading the antibodies or whatever. And I was like, it was classic, like, you
Cold.
know, well, it was classic. For me, it felt like a classic, what I felt like when I had COVID the first time.
Oh, okay.
Where it's like, I still don't have my smell. So like, it never really came back. I can smell some things, but like most things just smell like sour garbage. Like it's like, it doesn't smell
For
like
me,
normal.
I could like taste the smell of gasoline.
Oh, totally.
And
Yeah,
it was just, that's when I was kind of like, what is this?
Fumes are like the exhaust from cars kind of like is nauseating a little bit. I'm like, dude, it's kind of gross.
Yeah.
And I used to love the smell of gasoline. So I was like, oh, dude, like what? That sucks. But that was like the worst effect. But when I got back from Mississippi, I noticed I was like, dude, I have a banging fucking headache, like slamming headache. And I'm like, fuck, man, this sucks. And I was like, but I'm just going to rest. I'm going to drink water and fucking press on, you know, like it is what it is. So like about the third day, I was like, man, my fucking head is still pounding and this sucks. So, you know, I'm going to go buy some Sudafed. So I go to CVS, I walk in, I go to the fucking section where the Sudafed is and the cough drops. It's all fucking gone. Everything's fucking gone. So I stand there for a minute and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like there's nothing on these shelves, like nothing, like all this shit is gone. And I was like, you know what? I think this is the universe like telling me like, you don't need that poison.
No.
Like, let your body do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like fucking, your head hurts. So what? Do something a pussy. Get out of here.
Yeah.
So I decided, like I have plenty of times in my life where it's like, no, dude, I'm just gonna let my body work its course. Like whatever this sickness is that I have.
You gotta give your body a chance. Like
Totally.
we're so quick to mask stuff. And I mean like mask with Tylenol, your fever and everything, which to a certain point, yes, if you're getting above a certain, you know, number, you should. But me, like I had a sinus infection back in August and I checked my temperature and it was 101.3 and I was like, cool. Like I'm not checking it anymore.
Yeah.
Which is, they say nurses make the worst patients. Yeah. Yes.
And that's the other part too, like with this whole like pandemic, was that you saw people standing in line like in droves to like get tested for something that they don't have any symptoms for.
Yeah.
It's like you're not fucking sick. Why are you getting tested? And like people were like giving, I'm not, just for the record, like I'm going to talk about Trump, but it's not, I'm not pro Trump. I'm not pro any politician. I fucking hate all politicians.
I hate all government.
I think government sucks. I think there were things that Trump did that I think were great, and the things that he says that I think are absolutely idiotic.
Well, you know, and to each their own. Like, if you want to go get the clot shot and the booster and all that shit, that's on you.
Totally.
You should definitely know the risks and know that there are no long-term studies and
And no liability either.
Cardiac issues have gone up by like 200-300%.
Totally.
So I'm not for anyone saying like, go out there and get your booster. And I know like Trump was boasting about getting his booster or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that's on you. Like, if you want to do that, but I don't think that you've actually done it. Because if I was in that position, and I was trying to persuade people to do things, and then you know how easy it is to fucking fill a vial with like saline water and act like you're getting it injected and say it's your fucking shot. Like, no, I don't trust anything. Like anything.
Yeah, so I think the thing that was bothering me was that people were going out and like getting tested. And one of the things that Trump brought up was that like, just stop testing, stop getting tested, and your numbers and people were like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You know, stop testing. That it's like, but he's fucking right, because how many false fucking positives were out there? Shit ton. I mean, there was people in Africa, like the president of, I think it was some country in Africa, like tested a piece of fruit and it came back positive. And he's like,
there was people in New York, going to sign up to go get tested, and
did the test.
Or we're still waiting in line to get the test, and all of a sudden, like they're positive on their results that were emailed to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, like you didn't touch my brain yet.
Yeah. So now it's really weird, and like I don't understand it. I mean, we have like friends that like, it's like, oh well, we have like, grandparents are coming over and they were exposed to COVID, and I was like, but do they have any symptoms? No, they have no symptoms, but I need to test them because grandma's coming over. And it's like, but there's no symptoms. Like, I've never heard. I mean, maybe I'm not I'm not a doctor. I don't know everything there is to know about viruses and shit. But if you don't if you're not showing any symptoms, chances of you being contagious, I feel like are slim to none, unless it's some invisible, like, weird shit. I don't know. Asymptomatic fucking passing COVID. It's like, it's just weird.
It's just, yeah. And then just to go onto like grandma, grandpa, what people don't realize is, so in New York, because after I left LA, I went on to New York because I just had to see what all the fun was about. And
glutton for punishment.
Yeah. that is literally, I'm like, why the fuck did I choose nursing?
Right.
So going to New York, I got to experience the field hospital side, and I got to experience the ICU side in New York. And what I will say is a lot of the people that died, and this is countrywide, again, straight negligence because of the media, fear mongering people. It got to nurses' heads, it got to respiratory therapists, it got to the doctors. And you had, which I thought was very interesting, like this particular, we did the Ryan Larkin Field Hospital, right? And so Ryan Larkin was a former Navy SEAL, committed suicide a few years back. So we did the field hospital like after his name, and they took, I think there was like 900 applicants, and they only hired like 150 of us. The majority of us were veterans. And so you had nurses coming in with backgrounds like mine and Nikki, Fly Girl, with critical care. She had a lot of Navy experience. So she was actually like my counterpart. I would turn over to her. She was on nights. That's actually how, we met, like officially. And, we saw this stuff. But what a lot of people don't talk about is, we were discharging people on the day, which for me was weird because in cardiac surgery, like your patient dies or they transfer to another floor. Like you're not sending anyone straight out of the CVICU home. And we sent, little grannies, 92, 93, 94 years old, home on like 1 to 2 liters of oxygen, very minimal. We discharged a lot of patients out of the field hospital. They went home. We had a guy that was, he was on the ventilator. He had pre-existing lung issues. He was on the ventilator for, I think, like 31 or 41 days. He made it out. He walked out. Yeah. So you don't hear that, and you wonder why.
It's almost like they were trying intentionally to steer the narrative toward fear, toward more fear. And, and to be honest with you, like the only fear that I have surrounding any of that shit was going to the hospital. I was like, I just don't want to end up in the hospital because I don't trust that what's going to happen there is going to be in my best interest.
No.
And so that's the only thing for me. And it's like, thankfully I know people like you where it's like, should I get sick? It's like, I know who I'm calling,
Yeah.
Like, hey, you hook me up.
Yeah. When I was working with Nikki, I was like, nobody fucking touches me if I go down with anything.
Yeah. No, because it's sad though that's where we are as a country, that there's people that are free thinkers and critical thinkers, and they're like, I don't trust it anymore. And why don't they trust it? Well, rightfully so, because you see people like knowingly, like you have nurses like you that like, the treatment that the patients are getting is not what
working.
They should be getting, and it's not fucking working. But there's people being paid as a result of this fucking treatment. You got to start asking questions. Like, why the fuck is that happening?
I mean, you had you had doctors coming in because, they were saying there's a shortage of everything, shortage of doctors. We need more nurses. We need this. So you had these nurses and doctors straight lying, saying, yeah, like I do critical care, and they get there and they can't make a fucking basic decision, right? If you're actually an intensivist, there's certain things that you should know, right? Yeah. And so I saw that a lot in New York at the ICU, and it wasn't right. You shouldn't have this person, like, you shouldn't have a fucking dermatologist or a fucking plastic surgeon with no fucking critical care background running the fucking show. Yeah. Like, I had a baby doc. I call them baby docs, like little residents. I had baby docs, like, scared to sign off on an EKG, like to put in. I said, look, I put the order in. You just have to sign off on it. And they're like, I can't do that. I'm like, the motherfucker's heart rate was in the 150s, and he's like, yeah, he's been like that all day. I'm like, yeah, it's okay until his heart takes a shit, and then we're coding him.
Yep. Not sad. I think hopefully now that we're 2 years into this thing and enough people are aware and kind of waking up, and there's people like you that are willing to talk and share the actual behind the curtains kind of like picture of it all. Hopefully we're kind of at a place where it's like, okay, this can just go away. This is endemic. It's not going. COVID's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. We're gonna have to live with it.
The next cold/flu. If you didn't see it, like Denmark's already treating it as such. We should have been doing what Florida has been doing since the get-go.
Yeah.
Again, the fear mongering. That's what I'm not about, because it had major repercussions on patients, because you have people that, were making it out off the ventilator, getting, trached, so you get a little hole in your throat, and getting a peg, which is like a permanent feeding tube, or it can be reversible. But you had them right after getting a trach, like a fresh trach, like choking in their secretions, because nurses and our respiratory therapists wouldn't go in the room to suction them. And you have people like the team that, we had was comprised of, like I said, some critical care, some ER nurses, some paramedics, a lot of soft medics. So a lot of the special forces medics were brought in, and they were given RN credentials, which is very, very special for this case. Yeah. And you had these guys. I had like a great team. Like, these guys were going in there. I mean, we weren't gowned up. We weren't. If you didn't like mucus, like, you were wearing your face shield, just because. Yeah. Some of us can't stand mucus. Yeah. But we'd go in there and we'd suction the shit out of them, like, and they'd get decannulated, and they'd go, and they were progressing a lot faster than had they had a regular scared nurse. Right. That was just in it for the money, which the money was great, yeah, but at the end of the day, it's somebody's fucking life.
So what would you say to like somebody like me, or people that are questioning the narrative and questioning like what's happening? Like, so say like me or somebody I know comes down with COVID, and unfortunately it attacks our bodies in a bad way, and we need to go to the hospital because we just know we can't fight it at home. It's getting to a point where it's bad. What do you tell that person? Like, what do they do? What do they ask for? What do they, like, in your experience? And what hospital should they go to?
Kind of just depends on your location. There is a website where you can look up to see what providers are very open to prescribing, like hydrochloroquine and ivermectin and Z-Paks. Yeah. There is another website that you can find out if these doctors are getting paid extra money. Oh, wow. And I can get that for you, because my buddy and I are like knee deep into this shit all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
I just stopped caring, because there's nothing right now that is going to draw me to be a patient in the hospital. Like, I just won't. Yeah. I have this weird thing where I think if you're on your deathbed, you should be at home. Yeah. And I would be much better comfortable in my own home. I'd rather die in my home. So for me, I mean, and I was prone to bronchitis since I was a kid. I would get pneumonia. I get pneumonia like every other year with bronchitis. Yeah. But it still wasn't gonna stop me from living my life.
Yeah. Like, that's the sad part, right? Like, when you look at people, I'm sure you've seen it, and I know I have with my, like, even friends of mine, where it's like, do you understand? Like, you're never gonna get this time back. No. Like, never. And like, I think it's very easy for humans to not. You're aware of your own mortality, but you're not willing to accept it. So like, you just have this weird kind of like ego thing that like you think you're going to live forever. Yeah. And it's like, dude, like, well, maybe then, maybe when. It's like, motherfucker, it's been 2 years and you're still locked in your house.
I know.
And you're not doing shit. Like, you're so scared that you won't do shit.
Yeah.
And you're missing out on life.
And it's the fear keeps you from living, Yeah. For me, I guess because I accepted death a long time ago, like, it's a part of your life. A lot of people haven't grasped that concept. Yeah. I think that once people are okay with dying, which, it's the fear of the unknown, the scary part, and whatever you believe in afterwards, I guess helps soothes you or comforts you in whatever way, shape, or form. I think that if you're not okay with, like, you can go anytime. Like, you can go, car accident, like somebody could T-bone you, Yeah. You could get robbed or something. Like, you could go anytime. Like, it's just a matter of if it's your time. Right. And that just goes with whatever you believe in. If it's your time, it's your time. Yeah. So going out to New York, I mean, I was not wearing mask out there. I was chugging Moscow mules on the Brooklyn Bridge because I was going to keep living. Like, there's no reason for me to work 80 to 100-hour weeks and not have a drink at the middle, on my day off. I went and got a bottle of tequila on Cinco de Mayo and got some tacos and was pouring tequila into my horchata drink.
It's funny because there was a time after 9/11 where we were working, because I was in the military before 9/11, and then I was stationed overseas when it all happened, and we were working like some fucking ungodly hours, just like I'm sure you were, like when you were in New York. Mm-hmm. And it got to a certain point where it's like, I want to live. Like, I mean, I'm working and I understand I'm here for a mission and I'm doing my thing, but like, I still need to live.
Yeah.
I still need to like experience life, like outside of these fucking walls. And I do have time off, but it's like the time off that I had was like so minimal that like all you wanted to do was sleep. You're like, I just want to sleep because I'm so fucking exhausted. And I remember one night, one of the guys was like, hey man, you want to go see Tool tonight? I was like, where are they playing? He's like, it's in London. I was like, fuck, dude, that's like an hour and a half away, man. I was like, we're gonna get off work, and then like by the time we get out, I was like doing the math in my head. I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can pull it off.
Yeah.
And he's like, bro, we gotta live, man. We can't just fucking like, this is like, we gotta live. And I was like, all right, man. So we get in the fucking car, we drive down to Cambridge, where we get the train, take the train down to London. I'm like falling asleep in the fucking concert, like not for Tool, but for the whoever opened for them. I forget who it was, but like, and I'm falling asleep because I'm fucking dead tired because I'm working so goddamn much. Yeah. Then Tool comes on and like, dude, we have a blast. It's like so much fun. Like, we're seeing Tool for the first time. We're in London. It's fucking great. We get on the train. We come back. We get in the get to Cambridge. We're driving onto the base. I get to the dorms. And they had a posting bus that would come and pick us up in the dorms every morning to make sure everyone made it to work. Yeah. And so like when we pulled into the fucking into the parking lot, the posting bus was just getting there. So I had to literally get out of the car, put on my uniform, and go straight to fucking work. You know? But looking back on it, I don't regret that decision at all. No. I mean, it was brutal being at work that day. Yeah. Like, it's like, dude, I haven't fucking slept at all. But it was like, dude, I was living. And I think that's where a lot of people are like so lost right now, where it's like, dude, like, I think there's this, like I said, like a false sense of reality where it's like, dude, you're not going to live forever. And you'll never get this time back. And that's primarily why we decided to move to Texas. Cause I was like, dude, like the time that I saw like my kid being in front of a goddamn computer screen going to school. And it's like, dude, like you're not even going to real school. You're not interacting with other kids. And when he finally did go to school and they were like, they got their heads out of their ass, like, oh, but you have to put a mask on. And like, he's like wearing a mask to school. So like my 3-year-old has like a speech delay, and they had a speech therapist coming to the house to work with him wearing a fucking mask. And I'm like, dude, how in the fuck are you doing speech therapy with this kid with a mask on? At least wear like a fucking see-through shield or some shit, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, so none of it ever made sense. And like watching, you know, my 5-year-old was going to kindergarten, and like he would go up to the teachers, you know, and they would do this like little elbow bump, you know? I'm like, oh gosh, this is so fucking dumb. And so I was like, enough, dude.
For me, if you don't shake my hand, I'm like, especially for like dudes, I'm like, you ain't a fucking man.
Yes. No, it's just weird, you know? And people are so afraid. And I remember going to, I would go hike in these mountains in California regularly, like a lot. And I would work on the trail and do all my things. And I was telling someone, I was like, dude, this is like my sanctuary. This is where I go to like get away from people. And like where I go to like just recenter myself, like get back to like a homeostasis for me, you know? And during the pandemic, or plandemic, I would be hiking,
and you see these people with masks.
I would see these motherfuckers with masks on. Yeah. Not only wearing the mask, but like they would see me walking in fucking nature, in the fucking wide open with no mask on, and they would literally duck underneath. They would make all these weird movements, like
avoid you, like you had leprosy or something. Yeah,
totally. And I was like, dude, I don't want to come here anymore, dude. This used to be the place I would go to get away from these fucking weirdos. Yeah. And now it's like it's coming up here. I can't even fucking hike in the mountains without being around some fucking weirdos.
Yeah, I went to San Francisco for a very special project to run a field hospital, like in the death row prison. Yeah. And so being around San Francisco, you know, there's beautiful hikes, which I've always known California has its beauty, but the stupidity fucking runs through the air. Yeah. And so I was on a hike with a friend, and the people coming, like, you know, they're wearing full mask, face shield, gloves. And I'm like, stay the fuck inside if you're that fucking scared.
Seriously.
And then I'm getting yelled at because I'm running down. I was running when I was in San Francisco outside, raw dogging air. Right. And you got people on their fucking bikes with mask, face shield, gloves.
I mean, it's and it's hard because like there's a part of me that like the cynical part of me wants to be like, dude, you guys are a bunch of fucking pussies. Like, stop being pussies.
No, that's for
and like that's like the first thought that goes to my mind. But then the other part of me is like the tender part of me, the very small sliver of my heart that's tender, is like that person. Like, how sad for them. You know what I mean? Like, how sad that they're that scared that they've bought into this so hard that they don't even want to live their life anymore. Like, and so there was a good story about that when I was in California, and this is why it changed kind of my perspective, where I was like, I can't be such a hard fucking dickhead about all this. I walked into
that one.
Yeah, right. So I walked into to a UPS store, and I would only go to this UPS store because the guy who owns it, I can't. Tom is the name of the guy who owns it. Tom is a fucking patriot, and so I walked into the store and I never wore a mask, like whatever. And for Tom, he's like, I'm a business owner. I want your business, what I mean? Like, and I'm not I'm not a tyrant. I'm not a Gestapo. I'm not going to say you can't come in the store without a mask on. Well, he was getting these reviews on Yelp and all this other shit about like, oh, this guy doesn't even make people put masks on. He's like, I ain't your fucking daddy, Like, I'm not like I'm here. I'm wearing a mask out of respect for everyone else, and like because of California had their little mandates, or whatever. He's also me and my employees are wearing them, but I think it's all bullshit. And when I see people not wearing it, it's like, good for them. They're making a choice that's good for them. Yeah. And so I was like, dude, I honor this man. And like, I will give him my business forever, every day, twice on fucking Sundays. And anyway, I walk in one day and they had ended the mask mandate, I think, for 2.5 seconds. And so I was talking to one of the employees there as a kid. And I said, hey man, aren't you excited, dude? They're about to like end this mandate. You can like take that mask off, dude, and like actually breathe like fresh air and shit. He's like, nah, actually, man, I really like wearing this mask. And I was like, really? Wow. And so I was like kind of intrigued by that response. I was like, why? If you don't mind me asking, like, what's the deal with it? He's like, dude, to be honest with you, man, like I have really bad social anxiety, like terrible social anxiety. I always have my whole life. And so wearing the mask for me just makes me more comfortable in my anxiety. It's a security
blanket though. And it keeps you from coping.
Yeah. But so for me, I had to like kind of take a step back and be like, first I told him I appreciated that he would like his honesty. I was like, he didn't have to share that with me. Yeah. And I've struggled my entire life with social anxiety, but my mentality is like, don't be a pussy. Get yourself out there. When I'm anxious, like doing this podcast was a way for me, not this podcast in specific, like just podcasting in general. I was flying all over the country, meeting people I've never met before in their homes or in hotels. And it made me like get out of my own head. Like my social anxiety, all the things I had going on mentally, I had to quiet that. I had to quiet that to be able to do a podcast. And there was times where like internally I would be fucking trembling. And I'm like, dude, this podcast is going to suck because like I felt so nervous. Yeah. But then I would listen to it. I'm like, actually, it wasn't that bad. So I honored that that kid's like answer back to me. It was like, no, I have really bad social anxiety or whatever. So I'm trying to take a less judgmental approach when I see people in their car wearing a mask. I fucking hate it.
Those are the people that jerk off with condoms in their bed.
Totally. But it's like I'm trying to not. It's their life. At the end of the day, it's their life. They're gonna live it how they want to. Yeah, and all I ask like I said, is don't fucking tell me shit about how I live mine.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely agree with that. I'm like, but I do think that it keeps them from coping, right? Which. Yeah. For me, the way my brain works, right, going back to April 2020, I'm seeing these like lockdowns happen, and everyone's like, oh, it's just 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, 2 weeks. I was like, and then another 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks. I said, because if they told you 6 months, I said, what would you do? You'd fucking revolt. Yeah. I said, so they're going to tighten the leash a little bit more and a little bit more to where you don't really realize it's getting tighter.
You're a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, yeah. This is why nobody holds me at night. That's what my buddies told me. So for me, like my brain was going, I was like, okay, you quarantine these people or they're supposed to be inside, right? So, I mean, how many people are super unhappy in their, relationships or marriages or whatever, right? So I'm like, okay, domestic abuse is going to go up. People are going to get even more anxiety from fear of going out in the world and getting something. or fear of not having groceries, or fear of not being able to work because they can't
Not
provide
even
for
able
their
to
family.
wipe your own ass because you have no fucking toilet paper.
I know, because the hose don't exist. So for me, I just saw the bigger picture with like big pharma. I'm like, oh, cool. So all these people with all these comorbidities are going to die. They're typically the people that are clogging up the hospitals because they're constantly in and out because of whatever reason. You know, they don't want to take care of themselves, or something, you know, medication's not working. So I see that. I'm like, okay, they're going to weed all these people out, and then you're going to create this new thing, right? So you're going to create this new thing by all these people getting anxiety, getting depressed because they've been inside.
Yeah.
Then they have to be on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. And then you have all these kids growing up who are not going to develop, like, you know, certain characteristics or personalities or coping skills. And it's like, then you're going to put your kid, because they can't cope for whatever reason, or they can't concentrate because they haven't been in a fucking classroom for X amount of time with, I'm not going to say like teacher discipline, but anyone other than their direct family that they haven't been socializing with. Yeah. So there's your other moneymaker.
No, that's a great, I never thought about it like that. I mean, to an extent I did, but like, they're already starting to, it's like they're priming people and prepping people to, oh, the mental health, you know, is going through the roof. It's way worse. It's like, oh, but we have this new drug coming out, and let me fucking sell it to you. And it's like, the people that are selling the panic and also selling the pill, like, should make you fucking like question like what the fuck is really happening. And I'll be honest with you, like I said in the beginning, like when it first kicked off, I was nervous because I was like, dude, I don't know what this is, number one. Number two, like, people are fucking running out buying toilet paper like fucking idiots. And I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. I mean, I'll shoot a motherfucker if I have to. I'm not afraid of getting down if I need to get down. But I was like, I got my fucking kids. They're a liability because, like, they can't fucking, you know, fend for themselves. And it's like, you know, so you're, like, mapping this all. I live in a city. At the time I was in a city, and it was like, I have all these fucking weirdos everywhere. It's not, you're just like a sitting duck, you know, at that point.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, man. So my anxiety, my mental health was deteriorating fast and in a hurry. And I've always prided myself in being I've struggled with anxiety, but I'm a very mentally strong person. Like, I can get through fucking anything. Like, I'm not a pussy. I have a lot of grit and willpower to just power through shit.
Grit is what a lot of people lack these days.
Right. And so, like, I was like, fuck, I'm struggling. I'm hurting bad. And to be honest with you, the only thing that really saved me and got me out of that spiral was I hit up Heroic Hearts and went and did ayahuasca. And that is literally what fucking turned it around for me. Because I was like in a I was having a hard time. And the reason I'm sharing this is because, like, I'm thinking about all these people that are going to end up on fucking meds as a result of all this shit. And it's like, I get it. Like, I get it because, like, I was in a fucking bad mental spot myself for different reasons, but, like, in a fucking bad mental spot. Thankfully, I was like, dude, I will not be on fucking pharmaceuticals. There's no fucking way. So I'm going to find another way, a modality of healing and figuring this all out, mapping it all out in my own brain, and, like, getting right again, like getting like back to like where it's like, all right, I'm good. Yeah. And so I teamed up with Heroic Hearts and did first I did a mushroom ceremony, and then after the psilocybin ceremony, I did ayahuasca and changed the game. Yeah. Changed the fucking how I think about it, fucking everything pretty much now.
Which I've like read about it, you know, and I have like a bunch of buddies that have done it, and my brain, I'm like, you got to be ready for that type of therapy, you know?
100%.
And so when the time is right, like that's what I want to do.
Yeah. I was scared, to be honest with you. Like I was terrified. So like when I got to the place, and like I've done this a lot in my life, where when I got clean from, I was taking every opiate you can imagine, like methadone, fentanyl. I had a fentanyl patch. I would take morphine sulfate, methadone, Norco, like all within it, like a day, you know? Yeah. And then I would be all fucked up, or in the morning. So I would be all fucked up from taking it. So I'm like, oh, let me take an Adderall to like get me going. Yeah. So I like take an Adderall to like get me going. Upper, exactly. Downer. And then at night I'd be like, I can't fucking sleep because I'm all fucking wired from all this Adderall because I was taking 60 milligrams a day. And then I'd be like, shit. Let me fucking pop some Ambien, take some Ambien, wash it down with some more fucking morphine. I can't shit because I'm all fucking stopped up from all the fucking opiates. And so I was like, let me give myself an enema because I'm all fucked up. So like, I mean, it's a little TMI,
hey, at least
whatever.
It's not a butter knife.
Yeah, right.
Patient that stuck a butter knife up his ass to disimpact himself. I was like, man, the average human being would have taken some fiber. Maybe if they're a little freaky, get an enema.
Dude? Shit. No, so I when I quit all of that shit, I got to a place mentally then that because I had tried unsuccessfully because I was taking all kinds of not just the opiates, but I was also taking benzos. So I was taking a shit ton of Klonopin, Xanax, you name it. And every time I tried to quit 9 times, like quit it all, like, and I couldn't mentally get to a place where I was capable of doing it.
Yeah,
like,
a lot of that
like,
shit you're supposed to taper off.
Yeah, and I don't believe in that because I'm a fucking extremist in pretty much every area of my life. So like I was like, I'm just gonna quit. So I would quit, and the fucking withdrawals were so intense that like I would just, and I was like, I knew like mentally, I was like, dude, if I just take one pill, I'm back to feeling quote unquote normal again. So I'll just fucking start taking pills again.
All over, yeah.
And all over again. So the process would start again. It's like, dude, fuck. So 9 times I tried to like quit it. Finally, on the 10th time, I got to a place mentally where like I was like, I'm willing to die to be sober. Like I'm willing, if this kills me, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, you'll go through bad withdrawals.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm just fucking done. So I quit it all cold turkey, had 3 seizures. It was bad. Ended up in the hospital. They wanted to obviously give me more benzos. Did EEGs and they're like, oh, you have delta slowing your temporal lobe. Like, you know, fucking probably have epilepsy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I've been on benzos for fucking 10 years.
Forever,
and I just quit it all cold turkey. Like my brain's
like,
going to need some time.
Like I said, you should taper a lot of those things, right? So
Oh,
like
totally.
Methadone, like we told a doctor one time in the hospital, we're like, hey, you can't like just stop this guy's methadone. Like he's gonna code.
Yeah.
Got coded.
Yep. No, so I mean, that's the thing is I don't ever recommend anybody doing it the way that I did it.
Yeah.
But the point with all that was that the same thing with like ayahuasca and doing the mushroom ceremony was I was so deathly afraid of losing my sense of reality that I was like, dude, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Because you're not in control.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not in control. I don't know like who these people are yet. I hadn't met them yet. And I was like, dude, I was kind of fucking wigging out about it. And the first, the mushroom ceremony was going to be filmed. It was going to be on HBO, Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. And I was like, ooh, I don't know.
No, I don't like that.
And so I showed up and I went through with it. And it was pretty unsettling just because like of all the cameras in my face. And like, it was just weird. And I knew I didn't go as deep as I wanted to.
Yeah.
The people that I met there, they've become like lifelong brothers and sisters. And like, I fucking have such a deep love for them. So that in and of itself for me was all worth it. Like just the connections that I made with them was like, it's just invaluable. And then after that, I hit Jesse up from Heroic Hearts and was like, man, I'm still fucked up, dude. Like I need like help, you know, I'm in a bad way. So he was like, dude, we got this ceremony coming up, blah, 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 blah. Just get yourself there and we'll take care of you. Yeah. And so I went and again, I was so fucking scared. I was like shaking. I was so scared. And, then I went through with it, and because I was like right when we were about to drink, I almost walked out of the yurt. Like I can't do this. I'm leaving. Yeah. And I was like, "You're here. Like you're doing it. Like you're not gonna die. Like you'll be all right. And if you die, then you die. Yeah. That is what it is.
Then it's your time.
Yeah. And then it's your time. You know. And so I did, and again, like such a profound, like amazing experience, and the people that I met there. I mean, again, like lifelong fucking friends and people I care deeply for. And so I don't recommend it for like, it's not for everybody. No, you have to be mentally and physically ready for it. You know, you have to do the dieta, like do like the proper diet before you go and like be like really have your head in the game and go there with an intention. Like what's your intention? What are you trying to heal? Like, what are you trying to process? And the medicine will always give you what you need, not what you want.
Yeah.
And
so they say about mushrooms is like my buddy always says, mushrooms will give you the trip that you need, not the trip that you want.
Oh, totally. And people always say, oh, it was a bad trip or whatever. And like, you know, from the way that I view it, there's no such thing as a bad trip. It's what you needed. Like, you know what I mean? And I think they're doing so many studies, and that's the only reason I'm willing to really talk about it so much is that they're doing studies now, like at Johns Hopkins and Imperial College in London, where they're like showing that like the psilocybin is like remapping people's brains. It's like you're growing like new neural pathways, and people are healing from like major addiction, from major manic depression. Like all these things are like being healed with this stuff. And it's like, it's not you, like there are people that will abuse mushrooms. There are people that will abuse anything. Give them. You know, it doesn't matter. They're going to abuse it.
Because they have addictive personalities. It's
totally. But if you use it in the right context, it's so fucking amazing what it can do for you.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big proponent of it. And there's really no rhyme or reason for me sharing that story other than I'm happy that like I got to that place where I was ready for it.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of good benefits from it. I've had buddies get off like antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds by like microdosing or even just doing mushrooms like here and there. And dealing with the demons that we like to coddle at night.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is I think a lot of guys and women, especially in the veteran community, like sometimes you feel like you're kind of alone. Like for me, like when I was going through like the major anxiety and depression, like when the pandemic kicked off and I was just seeing the grossness of humanity, and it was really fucking putting me in a bad place. And I couldn't snap out of it. I would like try the cold showers. I would like do my breath work, and I just couldn't get my head in the right spot. So I knew I needed help, and I was like, I need to fucking reach out to somebody because I'm fucking struggling bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with a lot of people is they just stay stuck in their own heads, and they just feel like, oh, I'm totally alone in this. I'm kind of weird. Like they don't want to share. But at the end of the day, if you have someone you can fight the demons with, it's so much better. You know what I mean? Because we're not alone in this.
And
shit.
just the trust alone, it helps you open up that much more. Where there's like, I have buddies of mine that I've had, I've known them for 12 years, and we can talk about anything.
Yeah.
And then, or I have like Nikki, or like my friend Angela, or my friend, up in Arlington. Like I could tell them anything. It's like there's no judgment.
Right.
There's listening. It's like if you want me to give my opinion, they're like, I'll give my opinion. If you don't, like, I won't.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to have. And I think that was part for me, like of the healing process, was definitely setting. You know what I mean? I had the right setting and the right people around me. Because I think as veterans, I don't think I'm alone in the feeling of security. Like security is very important to me. And so it's very hard for me to let my guard down, to be like, I'm going to let my guard down and completely just let go and know that I'm okay.
For me too.
Yeah, it's just hard. It's like, I don't know if I can't, it's hard for me to be that trusting. But in this group that I was with, these were some like straight up like hardened ass warriors. And I knew that like they had my back.
Yeah.
Like I'm safe here. Like I'm good to go. And it was funny. A therapist asked me one time, like, where do you feel the safest, Josh? Like where would you feel the safest if you had to like pick an area? I was like, I don't know, probably on a military base with all my homies.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's kind of an odd answer. I was like, no, it's the truth though. Because that's the one place where like I can get shit-faced. I don't drink anymore, but like I can get shit-faced drunk. Yeah. Be like, and I know with 100% certainty that there's people there that are going to take care of me. Yeah. Like, I'm good to go.
So in New York, like you cannot put a bunch of like former military people in the same hotel. Oh yeah. And it's trouble. I mean, it's like we're working our asses off. Like I said, 80 to 100 hour weeks. So there's a few of us we would drink. Yeah. We'd have, a drink or two or three or whatever, every night roughly. But I never, like the three guys I always hung out with, like they're all three of them married. They're super fucking cool. Treated me like a sister. Yeah. Never hit on me. And I loved having the camaraderie. Like I missed it. Yep. And just the fact that if I did get real shitty, like those guys are walking me back to my room. Yeah. And they're like, okay, like lock the door behind you.
No, it's totally cool when you feel safe, when you feel secure, like the people around you are not A, trying to fuck you, B, like they're not going to let anybody else try to fuck you. And it's like, you're good. You can let your guard down a little bit. Because I think that's where a lot of people struggle. People that are either type A types, or alphas, where it's like, and that goes for male and female, where it's like, they just don't ever put their guard down because they're the ones that are usually the protectors. They're usually the ones that are making sure everything's all secure. When in reality, they need that time to decompress, where people got them. They can use somebody else as a rock. They don't need to be the rock, and it's important. Do you think that being in the career field that you're in now, do you think it has any effect on your mental health? Good or bad?
I say both, right? Both because you get to a point where you're burnt out, right? I was burnt out 6 months into nursing. I was just like, I fucking hate this because like I was doing heart transplant stuff, but they were coming out of surgery. This is probably like post-op day 4, taking care of them versus like right out of surgery. And it was still like mixed critical care and all that. But I got sick of giving people like 23 pills because they're on every fucking heart medicine in the book. Yeah. And they don't give a shit. Right. So seeing people, you can't help people that don't want to help themselves. Yeah. You got these people coming back in and it was like notorious after holidays, like day after Thanksgiving or a day after Christmas, they just come in because they ate all this bunch of shit. And then now they're fluid overloaded. They can't fucking breathe. They're coming in and they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, great. We have to put them on a fucking LASIK strip to get all their extra fluid off. Right. And it gets fucking old, for me, it's like you're not really making a difference. You're just band-aiding it until the next time you fucking see them.
Do you think it made you, or has made you like more calloused?
Yeah, I was already like very calloused. And I just feel like it's a good thing also to have, because you don't bring that home with you. Like if you brought home every story or every situation, like home with you to your family or whatever you have, at home, it takes a toll on you. And so that's why you see all these nurses like having mental breakdowns and, whatnot. And for me, I just don't take that home. And
so how do you protect yourself then? Because you're still human. So like, how do you protect yourself from having those mental breakdowns?
I don't really bond with my patients. The ones I have bonded with conveniently are veterans, and I bond with them before I even find out they're veterans.
Right.
And maybe just like the sick, fucked up, dark side of us that just kind of like meshes. But I don't know. When I say I don't feel anything when someone dies, it's very weird. It's probably definitely not normal. But there's one patient that really, really affected me, and he was a veteran. And I think what really got to me was I coded that man 5 fucking times one night. And I walked into work and I knew, like, I had him for almost 2 weeks, off and on. And he was between the mask, like the full face mask, like the BiPAP, which is similar to the CPAP. It forces air down into your lungs. And this dude, I noticed he didn't sleep. So I asked him, I said, hey, like, I don't notice you don't sleep. And this is like a makeshift ICU, right? So they put them in the corner. And when I say corruption, like you had ICUs that were being closed down to low census. Like you might have had 2-3 ICU patients, but they moved them onto like a med surge floor with no cardiac monitoring, or they had cardiac monitoring that was bedside, but it wouldn't transfer over to the station. So you couldn't monitor it from like the nurse's station or anything like that. Right. And so I got talked to because I had both my patients' rooms open, like the door was wide open, and they have COVID. And I would sit outside the room and, literally just glance at them every now and then, because you just never know. And then when you don't have a monitor in front of your face, which you shouldn't treat numbers, right? You got to visually check on your patient. Right. I would sit outside this room, and that's when I noticed he didn't sleep. And I'd sit out there all night, like not put my mask on. I'd be eating, drinking. And I got talked to by like the house suit because he's like, well, the door's open. I'm like, do you want this fucking guy to code and me not know because I had the door closed because I'm scared of getting something that I know what I've been working with for, going on a year and a half at this point. Yeah. And so when I say like the corruption, they were still billing them ICU billing, like their insurance company or, whatever they had, still ICU rates, which isn't cheap, but you didn't have them with full blown ICU capability, right? Yeah, you had an ICU nurse, but you don't have monitoring, and not everyone's as diligent as, like, for me. I'm not going to, if I could prevent you from going on the ventilator, I will. And for him, coding him, I think, because he lived through like Iraq, Afghanistan, and he already probably had, pre-existing lung issues because of what toxins and everything he was exposed to overseas. I think that's what kind of kicked my ass with that one. Yeah. And I still think, like, could we have done anything differently? And I've never just sat there and like held on to that. And I think what really got to me was when the funeral home came to pick him up, they rolled him out in like an American flag, like vinyl, yeah.
That would have got me.
Oh yeah. I had to walk away because I almost, even one of the other nurses, she's like, holy shit. She goes, I thought you were going to cry for a second. I was like, I almost did. But I don't know. Do
you think this is ever going to come to a head? Like, do you think it'll ever come to a head as far as like, I think there's a lot, and this is just my take on things. Like, I think like with that particular situation, I think internally you wanted to break down because like it's emotional, and it's like, it's moving, and it's speaking to a lot of different things that are going on internally for you. Not just the fact that was your patient that you were, coded 5 times, but also, he's a veteran, you know what I mean? So there's a bond there.
Yeah. I feel like it's a stronger bond.
Right. So do you think that there'll be a point in your life where you're going to have to come to terms with it? Or you think you're going to be able to just stuff it forever and be like, I'll be fine?
I think I'll stuff it. And it's not, I feel like when you let your emotions get the best of you in a situation like that, then things can go very south very quick and you're not thinking clearly, right? Yeah. So I tried everything, and that dude, he had impending doom. Right. And I made it a point to make sure he FaceTimed, and I have a really bad luck. Like usually when patients want to FaceTime their family members, like that's usually the last time that they get to see them. Right. And when he said he wanted to FaceTime his wife, like I went out of my way to make sure he got to, and he was praying, right? He's very religious. And so he's praying and he's praying out loud. And it hurt me to tell him like, hey, I know you want to pray with them on FaceTime, but like you're becoming more short of breath, like just with the talking and everything. Yeah. And so I was like, just maybe not so loud, or like maybe take a couple more breaths in between.
Or let them pray and you listen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so when he said he felt tightness. Yeah. I'm over there calling the doc. I was like, you have to fucking get him, get up here. And I was like, he probably has a fucking pneumo. So we ordered a chest x-ray and he ended up having a pneumo. He ended up putting a chest tube in after he was on the vent, but it wasn't enough. And I really think that like the mask, the BiPAP, like trashed his lungs, because we've seen that a lot and a lot of people don't want to talk about it, which is something. And Nikki started, we'd call each other and be like, what are you seeing? Like, and it's like, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that. And we would like discuss it and we're like, yeah, I think this is trashing their lungs. And it's the go-to because again, nurses they'll have them on like high flow and they're, 50, 60 liters of high flow. And they're so quick to just, oh my gosh, their saturations are in the 80s. And I'm like, look at them. They're not struggling to breathe. Right. Like, you can live a little bit. There's some people that live in the 80s. Like you got your COPD patients that live in the 80s. And you don't expect them to get above a certain percentage because it's not good for them. Right. So I think with that, I don't know. I don't know if, like I said, something's probably just wrong with me. It's probably better that I don't take all that home.
No, I think it's better that you don't take it home. But I think there's people that are, like I said, it's a certain type of person that could do the job that you're doing. It's like a person that could do the job that other nurses and paramedics and firefighters and whatever. Because I have a lot of buddies that are firefighters, and it's like, they're doing the job and they very much believe like you do, like where they don't get an emotional attachment because they can't, because if they do it, it affects the way that they're thinking and the way that like whatever. So they detach completely. Yeah. But my belief, and I could be wrong, my belief is that eventually that has to come back to the surface. Eventually, not while you're in the job, because like you're focused, like you're doing your job and like that's what you're supposed to do. But at a certain point, there needs to be some kind of reckoning or some kind of coping to deal with some of that stuff. Like one of my buddies that's a firefighter was saying that he's like, dude, I do my job and I can do it just fine. Doesn't matter if it's peds, if it's an old person, whatever. I can detach from all of it. But there are certain patients that I can't stop seeing their face when I'm sleeping. Like when I go to bed at night, I see their fucking face and I can't get it out of my fucking head. There's time that I was like, dude, well, you need to make amends with that. You need to cope with it because it's going to fuck you up in the end. You know what I mean? Like, I think it comes to a head eventually. So I hope that you find some way of like...
I think that morning I did sit in my truck for like, even if you give yourself 5 minutes to process, Yeah. Which I did that a lot with my divorce. I wasn't drinking or anything during my divorce, and I wanted to make sure I had like a clear head with everything. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I would give myself 5 minutes to like let it all out. It's like, cry if you need to. You get 5 minutes and you fucking move on. Yeah. And I actually did that with a friend of mine, Angela. We're in the restaurant and we were just grabbing lunch or something, and I like broke down and cried for 5 minutes, and I just shut it off. And she's like, holy fuck.
No, some people have that ability, and I think it's awesome that you have the awareness, you know what I mean, to know that like, all right, cool, like I'm gonna let this out for a second and then I'm gonna move on, and if that's the way that you cope, then that's the way you cope, and like, and hopefully like nothing ever comes to the surface where where it does come to a head for you, where it's like, hey man, like I've dealt with a lot, I've seen a lot, and like now I'm fucked up as a result of it.
I was more fucked up losing Jigsaw like than anything. It was just like back to back.
Tough losses,
yeah.
Seth and
like
then Jason
Seth,
right after.
Yeah.
It's fucking terrible.
So that was just. I remember sitting we were at the pub, and it was me and Dan Licardo and Johnny Sotelo, and I just remember talking to Johnny, and I was like, I gotta fly back to put my dog down. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is like not. He's like, how are you? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, not okay, obviously.
Right. Yeah. No, it's tough. And I think, hopefully you have like the support, when you need it, to be there.
And I know, I'm like, I know who to reach out to and stuff. And honestly, if it wasn't for Dan and Johnny, like, checking on me all the fucking time after that whole scenario. Yeah. Like, I appreciate them because even though I did not want to fucking talk to a single soul, like, they called me and they would be like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm fine. Yeah. Or I would be like, I fucking need to cry.
Yeah. Well, you got one more person to call now. You can call me. So you got my number.
Well, you're not that far away either.
Exactly. Yeah. You can just drive over. Come on. So what's some advice you would give to either brand new nurses getting into the field or nurses that are in it? Like, what's like some advice you would give them to like either to have a better career or to, whatever.
I say not even just new nurses, but I saw a lot of people just not apply to nursing school because of whatever some fucking advisor told them that, oh, you're not going to get in, or don't waste your time. Like, don't let people tell you what the fuck to do. They threatened to kick me out of nursing school every semester. They told me I would be a shitty nurse because I have no bedside manners, which is true. Right. I'm just blunt. Yeah, and totally. People need to hear that because I feel like they're super coddled in the hospital, and and you're getting yelled at because of some stupid shit like their coffee's not fucking hot. And I'm like, you have a fucking heart condition. You shouldn't be drinking coffee.
Yeah, it's funny because my grandma used to tell me like, oh, I love that doctor. He's such a great doctor. I was like,
because he gives you what you want.
That doctor has you on fucking 55 different fucking medications that are all probably contraindicated. So like, fuck that doctor. He's a terrible doctor. He may be very nice and smile when you see him and maybe spend enough time with you and make you feel special and important, but he's a fucking terrible doctor. And I had this neurosurgeon that worked on my back, and like people feared the man, like feared him because he was fucking tough. And I remember thinking like the same kind of thing initially, like, man, this motherfucker has zero bedside manner. I was like, but he's a good fucking doctor, so I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, if you're good at what you do, I don't care. You don't need to coddle my dick. You know what I mean? Like, you're here to work on my fucking back. Just work on my back. We don't need to be fucking best friends. But as a result of like him just being a stern kind of like football coach kind of guy, we ended up becoming really good friends. You know?
Yeah,
like,
and I mean the heart surgeons, like, they're known to be like these god complex fucking people, but our heart surgeons in Virginia, they were just like, yeah, if you don't like quit with your shit, like, you're gonna die.
I think we need more doctors like that are like, really, it's like, this is what you need to do to like change your life. This is what you need to do to like get better. So just fucking do it. But instead, like, it's like, well, listen, what you need to do to change your life. You're not gonna change your life, so here's a pill. Yeah, it's like you're just gonna be a frequent flyer. You're gonna be in this fucking hospital.
Here's another pill
month.
for that side effect, So
yeah, it's a vicious
I had a patient. He was an LVAD patient, and he was known to be a dick. He didn't fuck with me. So he was getting admitted into the CVICU because if this dude wasn't talking shit to you, he was like pretty bad off. Yeah. But he would randomly like gain consciousness and like cuss out the nurse that was admitting him. Yeah. And he was supposed to be drinking like he had to go to CT. So he was drinking like the fucking nasty shit, Yeah. He knows this is not his first fucking time. Right. So he's like yelling at the nurse, and then he like falls asleep or whatever. And she's like, I don't know what to do. He's got to go to CT in the next hour, and he hasn't drank the drink. And I will go in there, and I like poked him, right? And he opened his eyes, and he goes, oh, fuck.
You again, shit.
Yeah. I was like, look, hey, you're going to drink this drink. I said, you already know it tastes like shit. This isn't your first time drinking this. You're going to drink it, and you're going to drink it right now. So you better start chugging.
Fuck yeah.
He chugged it like 2 minutes. Yeah. And the nurse is like, how did you do that? I'm like, he knows he can't fuck with me.
That, you gave him a taste of his own goddamn medicine, dude. If you're going to be a dick, I'm going to be a dick right back.
Oh, yeah. But his wife loved me. And she's like, he needs that. And she had to request, she's like, you need to be his nurse because he's not going to listen to anybody else.
Right. Yeah, there's some people that are just terrible patients. They just don't do shit, and they just like they be like just yelling at fucking nurses and shit. And it's like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you, man?
I've been there. I got yelled at for the new nurses and like the students. You're gonna get yelled at. I got yelled at by, this is really fucking stupid. You know, we're super short-handed because of whatever reason, right? Like they don't have enough nurses because everyone fucking quit because they needed to go make money elsewhere.
Right.
Which I definitely 100% stand behind you. I was those people encouraging, you know, don't fucking stay loyal to a hospital that doesn't give a shit about you. Yeah. But this lady comes in and she's like, my mother, like the lady was batshit crazy and she kept fucking wanting to be naked. And to me, I'm like, I don't care if you're naked. Be fucking naked as long as you're comfortable. She's constantly hot. She's constantly cold. And then, you know, the daughter comes in and she's freaking the fuck out. And she's like, my mom's hair isn't brushed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bitch, I just intubated. Like we just intubated my other lady. She was going downhill. We don't have the appropriate monitoring to even fucking have her on this floor.
This isn't the Ritz-Carlton either. You know what I mean? Shit.
Yes. And then the other guy, like he was heading to get intubated. And then she's yelling at me. She's like, I like looked at her. She's like, my mom's hair hasn't been brushed. I was like, she's like, it hasn't been brushed in 4 days. And I'm like, neither has mine. Like, what is the story here? She's breathing.
Right. She's alive. I'm keeping her alive. God damn it.
So for the new, like the baby nurses or like the students, you're going to get yelled at in your clinical. If you don't, I'll just embrace it when you do and just, you're going to get kicked at. You're going to get yelled at, you know, slapped or whatever. I'm not saying it's okay. It's just, you have to just either find out if this is what you want to do or get the fuck out because it will eat away at you. You will become very numb. Don't let people tell you that you have to start med surge. That's not truth.
Yeah.
Pave your own path. I had to. The dean knew me by first name, hated my guts. The president of the university knew me by first name because I just brought up all these issues. And they literally mailed me, I have it still. They mailed me a letter saying I was being dropped from the program. Yeah. And they mailed it to my house. And I was like, yeah, no.
That's not gonna
march
fly.
my ass up to the fucking president of the HPU. And I told him, I said, I'm not leaving here until I see him. And they were like, well, we can give you the VP. And I'm like, that's not good enough. And I brought like 26 emails that I had sent out over the course of like a couple semesters. And he's just like mind blown. I'm like, no. Like, so just stand up for what you believe in. Yeah. Even if you're standing alone, you know, like it sucks. People are pussies and they don't, you have someone that's willing to stand up and then like you're not willing to have their back. Like, I don't have any respect for you.
Right.
So where with the medical community, right? I called bullshit on this from day one. And so did Nikki, right? So like we got ostracized by the medical community. We had shitty messages saying like we should get our nursing license revoked or we should, or quote unquote, we're not even nurses. I'm like, nice of you to, you're not going to tell me how to live my life. Or you're not going to tell me, you're not going to put a fucking piece of tape over my mouth. I'm going to just say it. So if you're not that type of person, you need to be that type of person. Like crawl out of your shell or whatever you have to do, but you need to stand up and cause the waves that you need to cause because at the end of the day, it's your patient, and if something isn't being treated accordingly, you need to speak up. Like the doctor ain't your fucking boss. You're supposed to work with the doctor. He's not your boss.
Right. And
I will say shit on doctors left and right for not making the appropriate judgment. And it's just, they don't like me. I don't care.
There to do your job.
Yeah.
How do you allow, or what advice would you give people to, do you think that your job had any effect on your outside relationships? Like, do you think your divorce was directly related to the job that you're doing? Or
No.
had anything to do with it?
No, I think actually when shit was like not already good, like we were already on the rocks, I made it a point to pick up extra shifts because I just didn't want to be around him. Right. Or I didn't want to go to his little events that you're supposed to bring your fucking significant other to because I didn't have anything in common with the other wives, you know? So for me, I'm like, I serve.
You want a dependa?
No, fuck no. Like I served. So all these other dependas that were just, oh my gosh, how do you help your husband serve? I'm like, I don't. Like, I'm like, already served. I'm not looking for a meaning to act like I served. So like that obviously was not.
Yeah.
I was told I don't play nice, you know?
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I'm not going to be fake. It's too much energy. I don't like it. I don't like people that are fake. I pick up on it real quick, and it's not my style.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit here and entertain you, you know, for whatever reason, because you have to check some box. But again, like that, the job didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, it was stressful. When I was in school and I was studying, and I would pick studying over, you know, going to the beach sometimes, or I would take my notes with me. So like I couldn't spend all this time, but our problems, were not from nursing school. They were more from family.
What do you think drives you now? Like now that you're done with nursing school, you've done a lot within the nursing like career field, and you're still essentially like writing your own ticket. Like you only take what you want. Like you don't take what they're willing to give. It's like, no, if you're not willing to give me what I want, then I'm out.
Yeah.
So what's your driving factor like now? Is it, you know, establishing yourself financially to where like you can settle down and have a family eventually? Is it, you know, just being the best nurse that you can be and just focusing on that? Like what's your driving motivator?
What drives me is I've never had peace like I do on this ranch. Yeah. And I have processed so much just sitting out on the porch. So to be able to maintain like my lifestyle, I'm going to keep working. I'm going to take only what I think is appropriate, because your time should be compensated accordingly. Your specialties should be compensated accordingly. And so for me, if I don't get a certain pay, I have recruiters text me every day. Oh, hey, we have a contract here for this much. I'm like, don't come at me with that disrespect. Like find someone else. And for the new travelers out there, you know, you can negotiate a lot. I just negotiated they wanted me to do a 13-week contract. And I said, no, I said, I need 10 weeks. 10 weeks, because in my mind, I already calculated what I'm going to make off that. And I have other pre-existing commitments. So travel and per diem or whatever you want to call it, it all gives you the flexibility to live the life you want to live. And it gives you the flexibility to pick up, you know, if you want to pick up extra shifts, pick up extra shifts. The way I look at it, I'm like, okay, if I want to buy another gun, like that's quote unquote, how many shifts, right? Like that's just how I calculate things. But take the time for yourself, which is what I did. I mean, I took off from mid-November to now. Like I'm not going back to work for another week and a half or so. Yeah. So what drives me is just maintaining my peace, having that, being able to come home to that.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's phenomenal that, you know, there's people like you, like I said, in the world that are willing to like step into the gaps, be the advocates for, you know, your patients, and also be willing to share like what's really happening on the front lines. I think if we didn't have people like you and Nikki that are out there that are really speaking, not only speaking your minds, but speaking your minds with the knowing that you're going to catch shit for it.
Oh yeah.
Knowing that there's going to be people within your community that are going to fucking talk shit and you know, take their license, do this, do that. And it's like, but in reality, like all you're doing is speaking what's true for you.
Yeah.
And what you're actually seeing on the front lines. I value you more than you know. I think it's incredible, like what you're doing. And I think, more people, could definitely be like you in a lot of ways. Even myself included, you know what I mean? I love the fact that you're like how assertive you are, where it's like, no, like this is like,
that's actually how I got into, Hawaii Pacific University was I had submitted my application and the advisor or the admitting, whatever he was, counselor or advisor, he hadn't gotten back to me. So I called and like, I hadn't heard from him. So I went up there and I was like, look, I submitted my application like over 30 days ago. Like, what is it? Am I accepted or not? And he's like, and actually him and I we're still in contact on social media. He told me, he goes, oh my God, you're the most assertive woman I've ever met in my life.
No, sometimes that's what you get, what you want. I mean, you get what you give. And I think you're only going to get what you feel like you're worth. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you see a lot of people that are, disgruntled or whatever about their plight in life. And it's like, but you're the one that accepted that. You're the one that accepted where you're at right now. And if you want that to change, then you need to be willing to be the assertive one. You're going to be the one that speak up for yourself. Or, you know, it's like when
no one is going to do it for you. I mean, I did to a certain point in nursing school, but when I spoke up and everyone stayed quiet. I literally told them, I was like, you know what, you go fuck yourselves. Like, this didn't affect me. I stood up for this situation because 6 of you came up to me in the fucking bathroom, like crying about it. And so I spoke up about it. And then the professor's like, I feel like I'm being cornered. I'm like, well, your students have an issue. They're just too scared to fucking bring it up.
Yeah. No, we need more people like that are willing to stand in the gaps, and that's like the same thing like I told you with like the mask stuff, it's like at TCU, it's like, why are we doing this? This is stupid. Why are more people not speaking up? And it's like, so I'll be that guy. I'll be the one that stands up and says, no, I'm not doing that. Because it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, and if you are that person that's going to sit here and try to like shame the rest of us for not, wearing a mask or whatever, because I had a guy, I was leaving New York, or I had driven down to Virginia after New York. Yeah. And this is like June 2020 when like the federal mandate for airlines like hadn't gone in effect. It was just like encouraged that you wear a mask. Right. And you had this, guy with like, I don't know, probably 350 pounds, like sitting next to me on the flight. And when I got on the flight, I wasn't wearing a mask, and flight attendant, she's like, oh, do you have a mask? And I said, no, and I won't be wearing one. And I went and sat in my seat, minded my business. And the guy sitting next to me, he's like, you're very inconsiderate for not wearing a mask for others' health and blah, blah. And I was like, you're very inconsiderate for fucking spilling over into my seat.
Yeah, seriously.
I was like, you didn't care about your health.
Right. Yeah.
And he asked to be moved.
Yeah,
so then I had a row to myself.
Yeah, but that's the sad reality of like where we are, I think, like I said, as a country, where it's like you have people that are complaining that you and I are not taking care of their health. That we're choking up the system. Like, look at yourself. And again, I'm not trying to be like a judgy asshole, but it's like...
I'm being judgy because when you go get a fucking clot shot and then you go to fucking Krispy Kreme and go get your free donut and your McDonald's, like, you're the person clogging up the healthcare system.
Yeah, well said. Fuck it. And I think that's, like, for me, like I said, I'm trying to, like, I try to be, like, in the middle of, like, okay, I can see your side of the story, okay, but, like, in reality, like, how I feel internally is more like, fuck you, dude. Like, like, if you don't care enough about your health, why the fuck should I? You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's your life, and you're free to live it however the fuck you want. If you want to eat Krispy Kreme donuts all day,
and have at it, like, totally cool. And I wouldn't be so judgy if you just would continue on with your life and don't worry about what the fuck I'm doing, you know?
So, like, I think, like, them coming in and, like, saying, like, oh, you're inconsiderate, or you're this, you're that. It's like, motherfucker, like, I'm not saying shit to you.
So like, if you're going to come at me, you better be prepared.
Yeah, come at me, bro. Be careful. Tread lightly,
because I will fuck your feelings real good.
Well, fuck, man. I'm super excited that we were able to do this podcast. I think that people that listen to this are hopefully going to wake the fuck up and start living their lives again, and
I
see
hope
that
so.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes that I think a lot of people probably weren't aware of. Mm-hmm. And they call you conspiracy theorist if you even bring it up.
That's fine.
Or they censor you, or or shadow ban you like your ass on fucking Instagram.
I can't be tagged.
But thank you again so much for being willing to come on.
No, thanks for having me. And just like one closing thing is, if you were a nurse working in Texas and you got fired for not getting the clot shot mandate, you can report the hospital to the unemployment line, and you can just Google like Texas unemployment, and they have a number, and you can report the hospital. And I believe Governor Abbott is going after them, which rightfully so, because the hospitals are creating these shortages, right. And then calling for help with like FEMA and everyone else, and they're bringing nurses that, in case y'all didn't know, are not vaccinated.
Yeah.
So just definitely look into that. And it's just ridiculous. Like I would have been working through the end of the year, but when they said, oh, you can get your clot shot by 11-12, or you don't have a job, I'm like, cool, I'll take the rest of the year off.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
Thanks for the forced vacation.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
I would say Instagram, but it's probably going to get deleted soon. So I would say I have a good email. It's vic_linz@protonmail.com. Cool. So if you feel like you want to share stuff, I mean, I think I'll probably check that email more than Instagram will eventually delete my stuff. So.
Well, good shit. Well, thank you again, and thank you everybody for listening. If you guys are digging this podcast, it'd be greatly appreciated if you go to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and, maybe a little review. It's super fast and super easy. A lot of people don't do it. I don't understand why, but if you do, that'd be greatly appreciated. And also, this podcast was brought to you by Combat Flip-Flops. Bad for running, worse for fighting. Go to combatflipflops.com. You can buy your flip-flops there and use the code MyBackstory. Save yourself 25%. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, V Linz, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.
Thank you for listening to My Backstory. Stay motivated and stay connected off the show. Follow at my_backstory_ to be a part of the journey to recovery and to see where your story goes. Or visit us online at hereismybackstory.com.